Welcome to the Tired Thinker, where persuasion hums beneath the skin and intentions hide in the folds of language. Tonight's mystery belongs to influence, to the silent choreography of suggestion, desire, and control. We'll step into the shadows where choices aren't chosen, where beliefs are placed, where the line between your will and another's whisper blurs like smoke. Dark persuasion doesn't shout, it guides. It arranges the world so that you arrive at the outcome believing you walked there alone. If someone can shape what you notice, they shape what you want. If they shape what you want, they shape you. So whose thoughts are you thinking right now? How many of your preferences were planted long before you ever noticed wanting them? We'll trace the methods: mirrored language that lowers defenses, covert empathy that makes you trust what should be questioned, anchored emotions that tether your reactions to someone else's rhythm, the illusion of choice where every path quietly leads to the same door. No fear, no fear. We're not here to weaponize, merely to witness, to slow down and see the gears that normally spin too quickly to catch. Before we descend, where are you listening from? What hour settles around you? How open is your mind to the idea that it can be opened further, perhaps without your noticing? If these inquiries find a home in you, I'd be grateful if you liked or subscribed, so other wanderers might join us in the velvet corridors where influence hides in plain sight. Now, let's begin. People like to think that they choose on their own. It feels natural to believe that we act from our own thoughts, our own preferences, and our own will. Yet influence does not always arrive as a push. Influence works best when it feels like your own idea. The invisible nudge is influence that guides behavior without force. It works by shaping the environment, the options, and the framing around a decision. By the time the choice appears, the direction feels obvious. You select the path that already feels like yours. Imagine walking into a grocery store. You pick up a specific brand of cereal. It feels like your choice. You may say you like the taste. You may say you grew up with it. You may say you prefer it. But the brand placed itself at eye level. It placed brighter colors. It bought the space where your gaze lands without effort. You did not look at every brand on the shelf. You saw that one first. The shelf planned your choice before you reached your arm out. This is how influence hides. It removes friction from one path and adds friction to another. The easier path becomes the chosen path. You walk it without a second thought. The same principle holds in conversation. A person who wants you to accept an idea does not need to argue. They only need to frame the situation so their idea feels like the natural outcome. The trick is not to convince you. The trick is to make you convince yourself. Think about a friend who always gets you to take their side. They never ask you to. They just present the situation in a way that highlights what benefits them. They say things like, anyone who cares about fairness would see it like this. You want to be fair. So you move toward the conclusion that matches your own identity. You did not notice that the framing came before the reasoning. The invisible nudge does not force, it shapes context. A scenario. You attend a work meeting. Before discussion begins, your manager says, "Most of the team already agrees that option A makes the most sense, but I want to hear everyone's thoughts." This sentence has already set the default answer. Now choosing option B requires effort. It means risking isolation. Even if option B is better, the group will drift toward A. People preferred belonging over friction, so the decision was not made in the meeting. It was made before the meeting started. This is the quiet power of social proof. When we believe others have already chosen, our own choice bends to match. The invisible nudge also works through timing. The same idea, placed at a moment of fatigue, stress, or relief, will pass the mind without resistance. A person may wait until you are tired before asking for agreement. The mind under strain does not question. It wants ease. It wants decisions to resolve. So the first simple answer becomes the accepted answer. Influence often works by removing alternatives, not by eliminating them, but by hiding them. The best form of control is not to restrict freedom. It is to design a path where the desired behavior is the path of least resistance. This appears in architecture, in technology, in tradition, and in conversation. A lobby funnels movement. A default setting on a phone collects data because most people do not change it. A cultural norm directs behavior because pushing against it takes energy. The environment chooses first. The mind catches up later. People also nudge their own future selves. Someone places their running shoes by the door because they know the morning version of themselves is less motivated. A parent removes junk food from the kitchen so the household never faces a choice at all. This is influence applied inward. The self influences the self by shaping the environment. The invisible nudge is not always harmful. It can be useful. It can align with personal goals. The concern is when the influence serves someone who does not disclose their intent. To see the nudge, you must watch for where effort collects. Ask, which option feels easiest here? Why does that option feel easiest? Who benefits from that ease? If the path that feels natural also benefits the one presenting it, you may be under influence. Consider a partner who suggests a restaurant each time you go out. You agree because you do not have a strong preference. Yet over months, your tastes begin to center on their choices. You start craving what they crave. You may believe the shift is personal preference. The shift may only be exposure. The mind trusts what it sees most often. Familiarity becomes desire. It happens at a pace slow enough to seem organic. A nudge also appears in language that removes alternatives. For example, since we both know this is the best approach, we can go now or in a little while. People like us don't need to think too hard about this kind of thing. Each phrase assumes something before you get a chance to think. The first assumes agreement. The second removes the possibility of not going. The third ties identity to compliance. No force, just framing. The invisible nudge also appears in silence. When someone withholds reaction, they cause others to adjust themselves. A lack of approval becomes a cue. A small pause after your sentence may make you rephrase, soften, or change direction. Influence through absence can be as strong as influence through words. To become aware of nudges, notice how often you act without reflection. Notice how often you default to convenience. Notice which choices feel like they go without saying. These are the places where influence hides. The choices that require no thought are the choices most shaped by environment and framing. An example from daily life. You scroll your phone at night. You do not choose to. The device is near you, lit, easy, and aligned with habit. The scroll feeds itself. The design removes stopping points. Endless feed replaces natural endings. You are not choosing to keep going. The path was built to continue until interrupted. The invisible nudge often works through default settings, repetition, emotional alignment, or subtle framing. It operates in the background. It benefits from not being examined. Once you notice it, the spell breaks, not through force, through awareness. Awareness makes space. Space makes choice possible. Not louder choice, not more dramatic choice, just honest choice. Your own. People connect more easily with those who feel familiar. When someone reflects our tone, posture, pace, or emotional state, we tend to feel understood. It feels natural, safe, and comfortable. Most of the time, this reflection happens without planning. Two close friends will start to speak in similar rhythms. Family members adopt one another's gestures. This kind of mirroring builds connection without effort. It grows from shared experience. But there is another kind of mirroring. It does not start from closeness. It aims to create closeness. Someone mirrors you because they want a certain result. The mirror becomes a tool. The reflection is not an accident. It is a method. You may not notice when it happens. The shift is small. If you cross your arms, they cross theirs. If you lean back, they lean back. If your voice lowers, theirs lowers. The brain reads sameness as safety. When another person reflects your behavior, your nervous system relaxes. You feel seen. You feel matched. Trust becomes easier. This is the mirror with intent. Consider a simple interaction. You sit in a cafe. Someone strikes up conversation. At first, they listen more than they speak. When you laugh, they smile. When you speak faster, their speech speeds up. When you explain a frustration, they nod with the same timing you use when you emphasize a point. They do not interrupt. They do not correct. They stay in your rhythm. Without noticing, you begin to open up more. You share stories you do not share with strangers. You feel like this person gets you. The bond forms quickly and feels real, though nothing real has yet been tested. The comfort came from the reflection, not the content. Mirroring works because people want to feel understood. To feel understood is to feel safe. The mirror bypasses the work of building shared history. It creates the feeling of shared history without the experience. This can happen anywhere. In relationships, in business, in friendships, in leadership, in persuasion, in manipulation. The mirror changes meaning based on intent. A salesperson may mirror your energy to make you more receptive. A coworker may mirror your opinions to gain your trust. A date may mirror your emotional disclosures to move faster into intimacy. A leader who wants compliance may mirror your concerns to make their guidance feel aligned with your needs. To see the intent, watch for speed. Trust that forms quickly deserves attention. Trust that forms slowly tends to have roots. Imagine another scenario. You share a personal disappointment. A person who mirrors you with intent will respond in a way that matches tone rather than content. If your voice softens, theirs will too. If your posture curls in, they will follow. You may feel like they understand what you feel, but notice whether they add anything meaningful. Are they sharing something real from themselves? Or are they only reflecting you back to you? Reflection without contribution is a sign of the mirror at work. Another sign is sudden change. If the person's behavior shifts depending on who they are speaking to, they may mirror each person to gain position. They become loud with loud people, quiet with quiet people, careful with cautious people, bold with impulsive people. They seem to fit everywhere, but they do not seem to have a consistent center. They shape themselves to the situation, not from their own values. This kind of mirroring is not genuine connection. It is adaptive influence. People who use the mirror with intent often observe before they act. They watch how you respond, where you lean, what makes you pause, what makes you soften. They use observation as data. Then they reflect what will make you feel understood. For example, if you speak in plain language, they will avoid complex terms. If you speak with strong emotion, they will respond emotionally. If you downplay your feelings, they will downplay theirs. You experience this as compatibility, but compatibility without conflict is not compatibility. It is performance. Notice also how quickly admiration appears. If someone mirrors you with intent, they may compliment not your traits, but your identity. They say things like, "You're the kind of person who really listens. You care deeply. I can tell. You think more than most people." These statements are not wrong, but they are structured to make you feel seen. When you feel seen, trust follows. The compliments appear early, before they have enough information to say them with accuracy. Early admiration is not always false, but it is always strategic. To recognize the mirror, slow the interaction down in your mind. Ask simple questions. Does this person reveal something personal that is not simply a reflection of me? Do they hold steady in their own opinions, or do they shift to match mine? Does their tone remain similar when they speak to others, or does it change each time? Mirroring itself is not harmful. It appears in healthy communication. Someone who cares about you may naturally settle into your emotional pace because they want to meet you where you are. The difference is that natural mirroring grows from relationship. Intentional mirroring grows to create control of relationship. The key distinction lies in reciprocity. Real connection includes difference. Two people show themselves to each other, even when they do not match. They do not need to be identical to be close. They can share space without becoming copies. Intentional mirroring removes difference. It replaces mutual understanding with a loop where you are only seeing yourself reflected back, as a method of lowering your guard. When trust grows, it should grow because you have observed the other person, not because you have seen yourself in them. The mirror with intent feels good. That is why it works. But the feeling of being understood is not proof of understanding. It is a signal to observe more closely. Kindness usually signals safety. When someone offers warmth, patience, or support, we relax. We lower our guard. We allow ourselves to trust. Care feels simple. It feels direct. But there is a version of kindness that does not come from care. It comes from strategy. It arrives early. It moves fast. It works to secure trust before trust is earned. This is kindness as a lure. Someone uses warmth to draw you in. They do not need to pressure. They do not need to persuade. They only need to present themselves as a source of comfort. People move toward comfort without thinking. They attach to the person who provides relief. The attachment forms before the intent is clear. Imagine meeting someone who treats you with unusual attentiveness. They remember details you mention in passing. They respond to your messages quickly. They show interest in your thoughts and day. They offer help before you ask. At first, it feels like genuine care. It might be, but the speed is important. Care that forms before familiarity is not care. It is a tactic. Sweetened venom feels like support. It sounds gentle. It arrives as help. But the help comes with a hook. The hook is subtle. It may not show itself until later. Consider a scenario where you are going through something difficult. A person steps in and says, "I'm here for you. I understand you better than anyone else does." This sentence seems comforting. It also isolates you. It places them in the position of your main support. It encourages a dependency that grows before the relationship has depth. The person is not sharing the weight of your struggle. They are positioning themselves as the only one who can hold it. Kindness becomes leverage. Another sign of sweetened venom is selective generosity. A person may offer help when you need it most, but not freely. They will remind you of the help later, not directly, not in a way that seems cruel. Instead, they might say, After everything I've done for you, I thought you'd trust me on this. Or, I just care about you and I need you to listen. The kindness you received becomes a tool used to guide your behavior. This is not kindness. This is investment with expected return. Someone acting from real care does not track what they give. They do not create a ledger. They offer support because they want to, not because they expect influence. The difference appears over time. Sweetened venom always has a direction. It is moving somewhere, toward access, toward control, toward emotional dependence, toward the ability to influence your choices without needing to argue for them. Another scenario: you share something painful from your past. The person responds with warmth. They say, "I feel so protective of you," or "I can't stand the thought of someone hurting you like that." These statements feel loving, yet they position the person as your defender. The implication is that you need defending. The sweetness has a coating of possession. Later, this can shift into statements like, "I just worry about you," when you make choices that do not involve them, or "I know what's best for you," when you express independence. The care becomes a cage with soft lining. Sweetened venom works slowly. It does not control you through force. It makes you want to stay close. It makes you want to please. It makes you feel unsteady when distance forms. There is another version of this. Someone offers constant praise. They say they admire your strength, your depth, your insight. They speak to parts of you that rarely receive acknowledgement. You feel seen. You feel valued. Yet admiration that arrives before real knowledge is not admiration. It is attachment bait. To recognize this, notice whether the person asks questions that explore who you are, or whether they only affirm what you show them. True care seeks to understand. Sweetened venom reflects back your desirable traits to secure attachment. It creates a bond based on image, not substance. Many people confuse intensity with intimacy. When someone showers you with warmth, understanding, and attention early, it can feel like rare connection. It can feel like destiny. But real intimacy does not arrive in a rush. It forms over shared experience. It builds through tested situations. It grows as each person reveals themselves slowly. When intensity appears at the very beginning, it is not intimacy, it is strategy. Another sign appears when the kindness reduces your movement. Someone may say, "I just want to make things easier for you," and then begin taking over decisions. They choose where you go. They arrange your time. They handle something on your behalf. At first, this feels supportive. You feel cared for. But soon, your life begins to run through them. The kindness builds reliance. Reliance becomes dependence. If you start to step back, they may respond with pain, hurt, disappointment. They may say, "I was only trying to help," or "I thought we were close." You feel guilt. The guilt keeps you in place. This is where the venom shows itself. The sweetness was never about care. It was about getting you to a place where stepping back feels like harm. To see the difference, watch what happens when you say no. If the kindness is real, the care continues. If the kindness was a lure, the warmth cools. The disappointment appears. The pressure follows. You do not have to accuse. You do not have to confront. You only have to observe. Kindness that asks nothing in return is care. Kindness that binds you is something else. Sweetened venom does not reveal its poison immediately. It waits, not to strike, to be needed. People move toward comfort. When life feels uncertain, tiring, or overwhelming, a steady presence can feel like shelter. Someone who listens, who speaks gently, who understands your stress without needing long explanations, becomes easy to trust. The nervous system relaxes around them. The mind quiets. The body loosens. This comfort can be meaningful and real. but comfort can also be used to guide behavior. Emotional anchoring happens when your sense of safety becomes tied to a specific person. They become the one you turn to when you are unsure. Their approval feels necessary. Their reactions matter more than others. At first, this does not look like influence. It looks like support. It feels like relief. Imagine meeting someone who always seems calm. When you speak, they listen without interrupting. They remember things you tell them. They encourage you when you doubt yourself. When others dismiss you, this person validates what you feel. They do not push you. They simply stay steady and present. Over time, you start to look to them when making decisions. Their opinion begins to weigh more than your own. You do not notice the shift while it happens. You only notice that you feel better when they approve and unsettled when they do not. This is anchoring, not because they forced anything, but because your emotional stability attached to their presence. Another scenario. Someone supports you during a difficult time. They show up when others don't. They check in on you. They comfort you. The timing matters. When emotions are heightened, attachment forms quickly. The person who helps during pain often becomes the person your mind picks as safe. Later, their influence does not need to be direct. A look, a tone, or a small suggestion can guide your choices. You begin to think in terms of what would they think before acting. The warm hand that guides does not demand control. It offers reassurance. Reassurance becomes dependence. Dependence becomes influence. There is no aggression, no manipulation in words. The influence lives in the emotional bond. Someone who understands emotional anchoring does not need to convince you of anything. They only need to remain the source of calm. When you feel unsure, stressed, or overwhelmed, you will move toward the most stable emotional ground. If that ground is a person, that person holds quiet power. Watch how this shows up in everyday interactions. A coworker who always soothes conflict may become the one the team follows, even if they are not in charge. Their grounding presence becomes a leadership anchor. A partner who always knows the right comforting phrase becomes the emotional center of the relationship. The balance shifts. You do not ask yourself what you want. You ask yourself what will keep the connection steady. The same pattern can develop in friendships. One friend becomes the confidant, the advisor, the emotional reference point. The friend does not demand this role. They may not even know they hold it, but their presence shapes your choices. Anchoring becomes influence when the need for comfort overrides independent judgment. There is a subtle sign of emotional anchoring. The person's absence feels larger than it should. If they do not respond right away, your chest tightens. If they seem distant, you read into their tone. If they disagree, you feel pressure to adjust your view. The emotional weight you give them is greater than the situation requires. That weight signals the anchor. Another example, a partner comforts you after an argument. They hold you, speak softly, reassure you that everything is okay. The body learns to associate their presence with relief. Later, when conflict rises, you may give in early, not because you think you are wrong, but because you want that comfort back. The comfort pulls you toward the resolution they prefer. The guiding hand does not need to restrain. It does not need to persuade with logic. It only needs to be the source of emotional ease. To notice anchoring, pay attention to timing. Anchoring often takes hold at emotional lows. When someone steps in during grief, stress, isolation, or fear, the attachment forms quickly. The brain links them to safety. The attachment does not question the person's character, intent, or actions. The attachment forms based on relief. Later, the attachment influences decisions. Another sign is when you hesitate to disappoint the person, even in small things. You may not want to say something that will unsettle them. You may avoid disagreeing. You may change your tone to match theirs. These adjustments may seem minor. Over time, they shape your identity inside the relationship. The warm hand that guides can be caring. It can be loving. The presence may be genuine, but genuine presence does not require you to shape yourself to keep it. The difference lies in your internal state. If you feel like you must protect the connection, you are anchored. If your sense of safety depends on another's approval, you are anchored. If your calm returns only when they reassure you, you are anchored. This does not mean the person is acting with harmful intent. They may simply be someone who gives comfort, but emotional anchoring always gives influence. Influence is neutral. Intent determines the direction. Awareness allows you to stand beside the comfort rather than under it. When you notice anchoring, you can slow down before acting. You can ask your own thoughts what they want, not just what will preserve the peace. The warm hand that guides may feel like shelter. It may feel like home, but your home should not require you to follow to feel safe. Right. Most people believe their desires come from within. It feels natural to assume we choose what we want based on personal taste, experience, and preference. Yet, desire is not always born inside us. Often, it grows from exposure, suggestion, and environment. A want can appear long before we notice it forming. By the time it reaches awareness, it feels like it has always belonged to us. There is a quiet process where ideas settle in the mind, not through direct persuasion, but through repeating impressions. Someone places a thought near you, not in front of you, not as a request, not as a push. The thought waits. You come to it on your own time. When you arrive, it feels like your own idea. Picture a conversation that seems casual. Someone tells you about a book they love. They do not insist you read it. They describe how it changed something in them. They speak in plain language. They do not praise the book. They describe the feeling. You register their tone more than their words. The book becomes tied to the idea of depth, growth, reflection. Later, when you see the book again in a store or online, you feel drawn to it. The desire formed earlier, quietly, through association, not argument. This is how want can be woven. Desire often grows from repetition. The more often you see something, the more familiar it becomes. Familiarity feels safe. Safety can feel like attraction. Someone who wants to shape your desires does not need to convince you directly. They only need to place the idea where you will encounter it again and again. Marketing works this way. Social influence works this way. Relationships work this way too. Influence does not always look calculated. It can be subtle and slow. Another example. You mention feeling restless. The person you are speaking with says, "Some people feel most alive when they change environments." They do not tell you to move. They do not tell you to quit your job. They only offer a frame. Now restlessness is linked with the idea of change. Later, when the restlessness returns, you may think, maybe I need to change something. You believe the thought is yours. It came from the whisper planted earlier. When influence is quiet, it works through association rather than instruction. Someone may describe a restaurant, not by saying it is good, but by saying, "It's the place where I feel calm." The desire that grows is not for the meal, but for the feeling. The meal becomes a route to calm. You think you want the food. You want the emotion attached to the description. Emotions guide wants more than logic does. To see how this works interpersonally, notice the timing of suggestions. A person who understands how desires form will speak when you are open. Openness appears during stress, confusion, longing, boredom, or loneliness. In those moments, suggestions do not feel like suggestions. They feel like insight. Imagine you feel uncertain about your direction. Someone says, "You've always been the kind of person who thrives when you take bold steps." This is a statement about identity, not behavior. Identity statements anchor deeply. You may begin to desire paths that match the identity given to you. You follow the identity to stay consistent with yourself, even if the identity did not come from you. Desire can also form through imitation. If you spend enough time with someone who values a certain lifestyle, you may begin to want it as well, not because it fits you, but because emotional closeness makes their desires feel safe, even right. When two people grow close, the mind mirrors without conscious thought. Desire spreads through proximity. There is also influence through contrast. Someone may describe what they dislike in a way that pushes you toward the opposite. If they speak negatively about people who are hesitant or cautious, you may feel pulled to act with confidence, even if hesitation is natural for you. You adopt the desire to avoid being placed in the category they implied was undesirable. Another common form appears in groups. Groups communicate which desires are rewarded. They do this without saying it directly. Praise, approval, attention, and closeness are given to certain behaviors. Distance or silence follows others. People begin to want what earns closeness and want to avoid what brings distance. The desire comes from the emotional economy of the group, not from the self. To notice when desire is being shaped from outside, watch the early moments of the feeling. Desire often starts with a pull rather than a reason. Before you can explain why you want something, the want is there. Pause when that pull appears. Ask where the idea first entered your life. You may remember a person, a conversation, a tone, a shared moment. Another sign is when a desire arrives fully formed, without exploration. You want something, but you have not tried it yet. You have not tested whether it fits you. The desire may not be about the thing. It may be about what the thing represents: approval, belonging, identity, connection. For example, someone begins talking about travel, describing not the places, but the versions of themselves they became in those places. A desire that forms in you is not for travel, but for transformation. You chase the transformation without noticing the difference. Later, the travel may not satisfy you, because the desire did not come from your own curiosity. It came from the meaning that was attached to it. The mind absorbs suggestion most easily through emotion. If someone can make you feel something while they speak, the message travels deeper. If they link a desire to relief, freedom, admiration, or intimacy, the want will grow from the emotional imprint, not from the idea itself. Noticing this does not require suspicion. It requires slowing down enough to ask, did this desire grow from me, or did it grow around me? The answer does not need to be quick. The awareness is enough. A smile can feel like honesty. Most people read warmth in the curve of the mouth and the softening of the face. A smile suggests ease, friendliness, and harmless intent. Because of this, a smile can lower defenses faster than logic can raise them. We often decide to trust a person before they say a word, and the smile is part of that decision. It works on instinct. The mind links a relaxed expression with safety. Yet sincerity in expression does not always reflect sincerity in motive. A smile can be learned. It can be timed. It can be controlled. The muscles in the face can be arranged to look trustworthy long before trust is deserved. A practiced smile can be a mask. Consider how early we learn to read faces. Infants look at the faces of caregivers to know whether the world is safe. The brain continues this pattern into adulthood. We scan expressions for signals of threat or comfort. A person who understands this can present comfort on purpose. They can offer a smile that appears natural while shaping how others perceive them. Imagine you meet someone in a setting where you feel unsure. They notice your hesitation. They offer a light smile, not wide, not forced, just enough to signal ease. The smile arrives before language. You feel yourself relax. You assume they mean well. You begin to cooperate. The cooperation feels like your choice. You do not notice that the smile set the stage for your decision. This is how the illusion of sincerity forms. The expression gives the impression of openness. The expression creates a shortcut in the mind. It bypasses evaluation. We trust faster than we think. Not every smile used in this way is malicious. Some people smile because they are naturally warm. The distinction lies in the timing and consistency. A person who uses a smile to influence will adjust it based on what they want. Their expression changes to fit their goals. For example, when they want agreement, the smile stays soft and steady. When they want to show confidence, the smile becomes small and firm. When they want to create intimacy, the smile appears after eye contact, as though the two of you share something unspoken. The smile becomes communication without words. Watch how you respond. If you find yourself liking someone quickly without knowing anything concrete about them, the expression may have shaped your perception. There is a common phrase, trust your gut. Yet the gut often reacts to familiarity rather than truth. If a person smiles in a way that matches what we expect of kindness, the gut responds to the signal, not the reality. Consider a scenario. You are in a negotiation. One person remains serious, thoughtful, cautious. Another person smiles often. They lean forward. They speak in a friendly tone. Your mind labels the serious person as guarded and the smiling person as open. You may find yourself agreeing with the smiling person, even when their proposal is worse for you. The smile disarms. The caution of the other person may even seem unfriendly, though it simply signals awareness. In leadership, the smile can be used to soften authority. A leader who smiles while delivering direction may seem more approachable. Team members follow because they feel safe, not because they understand or agree. The smile becomes a tool of compliance, not connection. In relationships, a smile can smooth over conflict. Someone may smile during an apology. The smile suggests regret, understanding, or tenderness. Yet sometimes the smile appears not from remorse, but from confidence in their ability to repair the moment without changing the behavior. The expression repairs the emotional impression, not the underlying problem. To recognize the difference, pay attention to whether the actions match the expression. Behavior is the real message. If a person smiles warmly yet avoids responsibility, the warmth is presentation, not sincerity. If they smile when denying you clarity, the smile protects their position. If they smile when you express pain, and the smile asks you to soften your feeling, the smile is a signal for you to adjust yourself to maintain their comfort. Another sign appears in timing. If the smile comes at key moments, right before asking a favor, right after you express doubt, right before you agree to something, the expression is being used as influence. It is not spontaneous, it is placed. Think of a situation where you felt uneasy about someone, but they smiled in a way that made the unease feel unreasonable. You may have dismissed your instinct because the smile suggested harmlessness. You may have given the benefit of the doubt because the expression felt gentle. This is how the illusion works. The smile tells you to ignore the signal inside you. It says, there is nothing to question here. Yet questioning is where clarity begins. A real smile does not seek to guide you. It does not arrive as a tool. It does not shift sharply depending on circumstance. A real smile follows genuine emotion. It does not lead it. When you watch people, pay attention to what happens after the smile. Does their tone match the kindness suggested by the expression? Do their decisions match the softness implied by the face? Do their actions continue to respect your boundaries? If not, the smile served a purpose before the words ever did. It shaped your perception before you could evaluate the truth. A smile can open the door. What comes through afterward is what matters. People like to be seen. When someone notices our effort, our depth, or our strengths, we feel acknowledged. That acknowledgement can feel rare. It can feel meaningful. A compliment can warm the mind and soften the body. It can open a door to trust. But compliments also have weight. They guide behavior and perception. When used with care, compliments strengthen connection. When used with intent, compliments become a way to influence without appearing to influence. Flattery is different from simple praise. Praise reflects what is true and does not seek anything in return. Flattery aims to shape how you see yourself. It gives you an identity that the flatterer benefits from. Imagine someone says, "You're the kind of person who always sees things clearly." That statement feels good, but it also places a pressure on you. You may start to act in ways that fit the compliment, even when you are unsure. You begin to uphold the identity that was given to you because losing it would feel like losing approval. The compliment becomes a leash, a soft one, a quiet one, but still a leash. This happens often in early relationships, whether romantic, work-related, or social. Someone expresses admiration for traits that are valued, but not necessarily traits you'd have shown yet. They say things like, "I can tell you're very loyal," or "You're so thoughtful." Before either has been tested, you feel understood. You may want to prove the compliment true. This is how flattery pulls you into alignment with someone else's expectations. A compliment works best as influence when it speaks to something a person already hopes is true. If someone wants to be seen as intelligent, compliments about insight land deeply. If someone wants to be seen as strong, compliments about resilience settle fast. The compliment attaches to desire. You begin to protect the compliment because it reflects the person you want to be. Consider a work example. A manager says, "I trust you more than anyone else here." The compliment sets you apart. It suggests a special status. You may begin to take on more tasks, stay later, or say yes when your boundaries would normally say no. The compliment did not ask you to do any of this. It only created a role. You step into the role because it feels good to be valued. The leash tightens through your own choices. Another scenario, a friend tells you, "I always feel safe talking to you. You're the one person who really gets me." You feel honored. You might begin to prioritize their emotional needs over your own. If they withdraw approval or warmth, you may feel compelled to regain it by being even more supportive. The compliment created a responsibility, and that responsibility becomes an unspoken contract. Flattery also appears in romantic contexts. Early intensity often includes strong compliments. "I've never met anyone like you. You're different from everyone else. I feel so lucky to have found you." These statements feel meaningful. They create closeness quickly, yet they also raise expectations. You begin to shape yourself to maintain the special status you were given. The flattery did not only reflect you, it began to direct you. To recognize flattery as influence, pay attention to timing. When a compliment appears early, before enough shared experience exists to justify it, it may be serving a purpose. When the compliment describes your character instead of your actions, it may be forming an identity for you to hold. When the compliment comes right before a request, it may be softening resistance. Flattery as a tool does not always look intentional. The person may not be trying to manipulate you. Sometimes people flatter others because it allows connection without vulnerability. Compliments become a way to bond without revealing their own uncertainties. The effect is still the same. You take on the identity, they receive the benefit. Watch how your behavior changes after a compliment. If you adjust your tone, your choices, or your boundaries to stay in alignment with the praise, the compliment has created a leash, a quiet one you may not notice until you feel tension when you try to act differently. Another sign of flattery as influence is when the compliment feels slightly exaggerated. You might sense it is too grand or too sudden, yet part of you wants to believe it. You accept it because accepting it feels good. The mind often prefers comfort to accuracy. For example, someone might say, "You always know the right thing to say." You may know this is not always true, but the desire to be that person encourages you to act as though it is true. You begin to speak carefully to maintain the identity. The identity shapes your behavior. The behavior benefits the person who complimented you. Flattery becomes a silent leash when losing the compliment feels threatening. If the compliment is removed, you may feel uneasy, insecure, or ashamed. The person does not need to reprimand you. The absence of the compliment becomes enough to guide you back into line. Noticing this does not require suspicion. It simply requires awareness. When someone compliments you, pause. Let it settle without acting. Ask yourself whether the compliment describes something real, demonstrated, and consistent, or whether it describes a version of you the other person wants you to maintain. Compliments that reflect truth feel steady. Compliments that create pressure feel tightening. If you feel the need to live up to the compliment, rather than simply receive it, the compliment is guiding you. That is where the string begins. People tend to follow the path that requires the least effort. When faced with a choice, the option that feels simpler, quicker, or more familiar often prevails over the option that requires thought. Influence works most effectively when it does not look like influence. Instead of persuading through argument, it shapes the environment so that the desired outcome feels natural. The door is not forced open, it is already ajar. A half-open door does not ask for commitment, it asks for continuation. You do not stop and consider. You simply step through. The mind relaxes when a decision seems to have already been made. The body moves forward without pause. This is how small decisions turn into larger ones. Bit by bit, yes becomes the default. Imagine visiting a friend. They say, "Stay a little longer," while handing you tea and clearing space on the couch. The invitation is already in motion. You are not deciding whether to stay. You are continuing the moment that is already happening. The ease of the scene carries you. The choice has been shaped before you even recognize it as one. This is how the half-open door works. In conversations, the half-open door appears when someone frames a suggestion as though it has already been partly accepted. Instead of asking, "Do you want to go?" they say, "We'll go in a few minutes." Instead of asking, "Are you free tomorrow?" they say, "I'll come by tomorrow since you're usually home then." The spoken assumption makes refusal require effort. To say no means disrupting the flow. Agreeing means simply letting the moment continue. Many people say yes because they do not want to be the disruption. The half-open door is also used in negotiations. A person might place paperwork in front of you, pen ready, signature line highlighted. The environment implies completion. To pause and reconsider feels unnatural. You sign because everything around you is arranged for signing. The environment guided you. In relationships, the half-open door shows up as small steps that escalate without discussion. Someone may leave belongings at your place. They may start planning days around you. They may speak about shared futures as if they already exist. None of these moves require your explicit agreement. They accumulate. Soon the relationship is positioned as something larger than you consciously chose. You did not step through a closed door. You walked through the open one that was already in front of you. Another scenario. A coworker asks for help, just this once. The task is easy. You agree. Next time, they say, "You handled it so well last time. I knew you'd grab it again." The framing positions continuation as natural. To refuse now means breaking continuity, not just declining a task. Most people avoid the discomfort of reversing what has already started. The door opened earlier. You only realize it when you are already on the other side. The half-open door also appears in social situations. If a group begins moving toward a plan, it can feel easier to follow than to suggest something different. No one asked for agreement directly. The momentum makes the choice. You simply match the motion. This is how many small commitments happen, not through decision, but through drift. Influence works well when it reduces friction. Friction is anything that causes pause or requires active thought. If a suggestion is wrapped in familiarity, routine, or implied expectation, the mind does not activate resistance. Saying yes becomes easier than considering alternatives. Notice how often convenience guides your choices. You buy the same brand because it is in the same place on the shelf. You stream the same kind of content because the platform recommends it first. You repeat habits because they are already in motion. The half-open door is everywhere in daily life. It is not manipulative by itself. It becomes manipulation when someone designs the situation so that your default benefits them. The key detail is that saying yes feels easier than thinking. To recognize this pattern, look for moments when a choice does not feel like a choice. You move to agree before your mind engages. There is no weighing of alternatives, no pause to reflect. You simply continue what is already happening. Another example, a person might say, "I already told them you'd help," or "I told everyone you're joining." The commitment is presented as finished. Declining now requires explanation. Explanation requires effort. Effort feels uncomfortable. So the yes slips out. The half-open door was created by presenting the commitment as complete. In romantic dynamics, the pattern can be subtle. Someone may say, "We're good together," before the relationship has formed. The statement plants a narrative. Your interactions begin to follow the script. The idea takes hold, not through discussion, but through repetition. The relationship grows around the narrative instead of through shared choice. The half-open door is not loud. It does not demand. It assumes. Noticing this does not require confrontation. It requires slowing the moment down enough to allow the mind to step in. Ask yourself, even quietly, did I choose this? Or did I step into it because it was already unfolding? If your yes came before your thought, the door was already open. Fear guides behavior more than preference does. When we feel fear, the mind narrows. It stops exploring possibilities and focuses on removing discomfort. Anyone who understands your fears can predict how you will act. They can anticipate which choices you will avoid and which you will move toward without thinking. This knowledge can come from observation, not pressure. Someone watches how you react to stress, uncertainty, silence, or conflict. They learn the pattern. Once they know the pattern, they do not need to push you. They only need to place the right emotional cue in the right moment. This is emotional mapping. It is not always malicious. People can learn each other in healthy ways, but when someone learns your fears in order to guide you, influence works quietly. You respond to their voice because their voice touches the part of you that wants relief. Imagine a person notices that you cringe a little when someone disapproves of you. They see how quickly you soften your tone or change direction to avoid conflict. They don't comment on it. They simply file it away. Later, when they want you to agree with them, they do not argue. They do not insist. They say, "I'd hate for there to be tension between us." The sentence is simple. It carries no attack, but it touches your fear. You move to resolve the discomfort before it appears. The other person did not need to pressure you. They only needed to place the fear in view. You think you chose peace. The choice was shaped by fear. Another example. Someone learns that you fear being seen as selfish. When they want something from you, they say, "I know you wouldn't want to let anyone down." The statement is not direct. It does not sound like manipulation. It sounds like praise tied to expectation. But the fear behind the expectation does the work. You comply to protect your self-image. Your want becomes secondary to staying good. This is how emotional mapping influences decisions. To map someone emotionally, a person observes when your voice changes, when your breath shortens, when your gaze drops, when you shift in your chair, when your tone grows soft, when you speak too quickly, when you stop speaking at all. These signals reveal where your uncertainty lives. Once your fear is known, the key to your reactions is known. People often reveal fears without realizing it. Someone afraid of abandonment speaks in reassurance. Someone afraid of failure over-explains. Someone afraid of anger tries to smooth over disagreements. Someone afraid of rejection apologizes before there is anything to apologize for. These patterns show where the emotional pressure lives. A person paying attention does not need to ask. They simply watch. Emotional mapping is most effective when done slowly. Noticing one fear gives partial information. Noticing the fear across different situations gives a full map. A person may watch how you react to disappointment, then frustration, then intimacy, then uncertainty. They learn not just what you fear, but what you fear most. Once the strongest fear is known, influence becomes precise. For instance, if your deepest fear is being lonely, someone can draw you close with warmth, then pull back with distance. The distance activates the fear. You move toward them to close the gap. They do not need to request closeness. Your fear requests it on their behalf. If your fear is being inadequate, someone can praise you, then withhold it. You try to earn back the praise by aligning with their expectations. The behavior looks voluntary. It is guided by the need to restore internal balance. Another scenario. You are in a disagreement. The other person knows you feared being seen as unreasonable. Instead of arguing, they lower their voice and say, "You're not being fair right now." The tone is calm. The statement is simple. You shift. You try to correct yourself, not because you believe you were unfair, but because fairness is tied to your identity. The fear of being unfair moves you. Emotional mapping does not require cruelty. The influence happens through suggestion. The words are gentle. The timing is subtle. The pressure is internal. You move to avoid the feeling, not to satisfy the other person, but the effect is the same. A sign of emotional mapping is when someone always speaks to you in exactly the tone that disarms you. For example, if you react strongly to raised voices, they will never raise theirs. That calm tone becomes the rope that leads you. They bypass your defenses by refusing to trigger them. The absence of conflict becomes the influence. Another sign is when someone always knows the right moment to speak, especially when you are unsure. If they consistently respond when your mind is most vulnerable, when you are tired, stressed, overwhelmed, doubting yourself, they are using timing as leverage. The suggestion offered at that moment does not feel like persuasion, it feels like rescue. To recognize emotional mapping, notice when you feel guided without being asked. Notice when your reactions feel automatic. Notice when you change your position, not because you reconsidered, but because you felt discomfort and wanted relief. The body knows before the mind does. If your shoulders tense, if your breath shortens, if you speak to explain yourself rather than express yourself, your fear is active. When your fear is active, you are easier to lead. You do not need to fight the influence. You only need to name the feeling. Once the fear is seen, the automatic response slows. A choice becomes possible again. Some arguments feel good to agree with. They sound smooth, balanced, reasonable, and calm. They are shaped to be easy to accept. The tone is steady. The words are simple. The reasoning is familiar. Nothing feels forced. This kind of argument does not challenge you. It glides past your guard. It feels like the natural conclusion to something you already believed, even if you didn't believe it a moment before. This is honeyed logic, reason coated in emotional sweetness. It works not because it is true, but because it is pleasant. Honeyed logic rarely uses strong claims. It avoids pressure. It presents ideas in a way that seems obvious. It gives you reasons that make you feel good about agreeing. The sweetness is not in the argument itself, but in the emotional payoff of accepting it. Imagine someone says, "You deserve something simple. Life is complicated enough." At face value, this sounds caring. It creates a soothing frame. It suggests ease. If that person is using this statement to justify a decision that benefits them, the argument still feels like it benefits you. The logic is shaped to feel comforting. You accept the conclusion because you want the comfort, not because you evaluated the reasoning. The argument feels rational because it fits what you want to feel. Another example. Someone says, "We're on the same side. I wouldn't say this if I didn't care about you." The message is that the argument is coming from loyalty, not interest. Now disagreeing feels like rejecting the relationship, not the idea. The reasoning slides past your critical thinking because it frames itself as emotional safety. You accept the logic because accepting it preserves connection. Honeyed logic works by blending thought and feeling. It does not overpower, it guides. A person using honeyed logic may speak softly. They may pause in the right places. They may nod while you speak, making you feel heard. When they respond, they confirm parts of what you said before offering a slight redirection. They shape agreement as alignment. You feel like the two of you reached a shared conclusion, even though you were led to it. The key feature is that the argument feels good. If the conclusion were presented without the emotional tone, you might reject it. But wrapped in warmth, it becomes easy to accept. Consider a conversation about responsibility in a relationship. One person might say, "I just want us both to be happy. I know you don't like conflict, and I don't want to push you. So let's just keep things peaceful." The statement values harmony. It sounds thoughtful. Yet what it really says is don't bring up issues. The logic prevents discomfort, not because the reasoning is sound, but because the emotional tone is soothing. The sweetness hides the cost. In workplaces, the same pattern appears. A leader may say, "We all just need to pull together. We're like a family here." The phrase sounds warm. It makes unity feel good, but it also implies that refusing extra work or disagreeing with decisions is a betrayal. The logic bypasses fair evaluation. It converts sacrifice into loyalty. You comply because the alternative feels cold. Another sign of honeyed logic is when the argument mentions your values before delivering the conclusion. For example, "You care deeply. That's one of the things I admire about you. And because you care, I know you'll understand why this is the right decision." This structure links agreement with being a good person. If you disagree, You risk feeling like you are acting against your own values. The sweetness binds the choice to the identity. You follow the reasoning to protect how you see yourself. Persons who rely on honeyed logic are often skilled in tone more than content. Their statements are smooth. They rarely show frustration. They speak in calm, reassuring rhythms. The calmness becomes a substitute for credibility. You trust them because they sound stable. But calmness is not proof. Soft edges do not confirm honesty. Warmth does not replace substance. To recognize honeyed logic, you need to separate how the argument feels from what the argument says. Do not focus on the tone. Look at the structure. A honeyed argument often works quickly, feels complete, even when details are missing, reduces complexity instead of addressing it, encourages agreement through identity or belonging instead of reasoning, makes disagreement feel rude, ungrateful, or unkind. Imagine someone wants you to overlook a problem. They say, "Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. We have something good here. Why ruin it?" The logic suggests preservation, but what it actually does is prevent examination. It keeps the situation comfortable for the one who benefits from lack of change. If you agree, you may feel relief in the short term, but the decision did not come from clarity. It came from the desire to avoid discomfort. Honeyed logic replaces evaluation with ease. This does not mean every gentle argument is manipulation. It means you must watch when an argument feels good while asking nothing of your judgment. Ask, does the argument stand on its own if I remove the tone? Does it hold up if spoken plainly? Does the conclusion still make sense without the emotional frame around it? If the message loses force when stripped of warmth, the warmth was the persuasion. When the sweetness is removed, the structure becomes clear. The mind can accept comfort, but comfort should not be mistaken for truth. People look for signs that their thoughts make sense. When we form an opinion, a hope, or a fear, we check the world around us to see if others think the same. Agreement feels like confirmation. It tells us we are not alone, not mistaken, not out of place. The mind trusts what appears to be shared. This is why repetition can feel like truth. If an idea comes back to us many times, from many directions, in many forms, it begins to feel inevitable. This is the echo that reassures. The echo does not persuade through argument. It persuades through familiarity. The more often something is repeated, the more natural it feels. The brain links repetition to reliability. If you keep hearing the same thought, you stop questioning where it came from. You begin to believe you came to it yourself. Consider a simple situation. You say, "I think I might be overreacting," and the person across from you says, "You're not overreacting." That response is not agreement. It is repetition, but hearing your own words mirrored back eases your doubt. You feel validated. You may open up more. You believe the other person understands you. Yet the reassurance came from reflecting your words, not from evaluation. This is the echo. Another example, you express uncertainty about a coworker. You say, "They seem distant." The other person replies, "Yes, they do seem distant." Nothing new was added, no perspective, no evidence, no reasoning. But the echo makes your impression feel shared. Your suspicion begins to solidify. The belief gains weight not because of logic, but because someone else repeated it. Repetition can also appear in larger groups. A sentence spoken once in a group may pass unnoticed. Spoken twice, it seems like a shared thought. Spoken 3 times, it becomes common knowledge. People start referencing the idea because it feels like everyone already knows it. This is how group norms form without discussion. The echo influences by creating the illusion of consensus. Someone who understands this pattern may use it gently. They repeat your phrasing to create closeness. They reflect your tone to make you feel seen. They restate your interpretations in a way that makes them sound more stable. You feel understood. The connection deepens, yet nothing real has been exchanged. Repetition alone can build strong emotional alignment. A person may say, "I know what you mean," several times in a conversation. The words do not add insight. They simply soften the space between you. You may begin to share more because the atmosphere feels supportive. The echo guides you forward. Now imagine repetition used for persuasion. Say you are unsure about a decision. Someone says, "You've always made good choices." Later, during another moment of doubt, they say again, "You make thoughtful decisions." Later still, "You know what's right for you." The words form a rhythm. The message becomes part of your self-perception. You begin to feel confident, not because you considered the situation, but because your identity is being reinforced by repetition. When you act to match the identity echoed back to you. Repetition shapes the story you believe about yourself. Another scenario, you mention feeling tired. Someone echoes, "Of course you're tired, you work so hard." You express frustration about lack of appreciation. They echo, "People don't realize how much you do." You express doubt about whether you are valued. They echo, "You deserve better." Each repetition feels supportive, but it guides your emotional direction. Soon you may conclude, without discussing alternatives, that the environment you are in is unfair. You may make a move not because of reflection, but because the echoed phrases built a narrative inside you. The echo works through accumulation, not force. It appears in advertising, politics, relationships, workplaces, friendships, and families. When the same message returns from multiple angles, the mind shifts from noticing the message to experiencing a message as truth. It does not matter whether the echo comes from many people or just one person speaking to you many times. The effect can be the same. To notice the echo, pay attention to language patterns. If you hear the same phrase often, especially one tied to identity or emotion, pause. Ask whether the phrase reflects your experience or shapes it. For instance, if someone frequently says, "You always take care of everyone," the phrase may begin to guide your behavior. You may offer help, even when tired. You fulfill the role because the repeated idea has attached to your identity. The echo can also shape relationships. If someone frequently says, "We understand each other," the statement begins to feel true. You may open up faster. You may feel bound to maintain the connection. Yet real understanding requires evidence. Repetition makes the feeling of understanding arrive before the understanding itself. Another example, a partner says, "We're good together," at various calm moments. The repetition takes root. Later, when conflict emerges, the phrase surfaces in your mind. You may stay, not because the relationship is strong, but because the repeated belief is strong. Repetition builds emotional glue. In group settings, the echo reinforces hierarchy. A leader may say, "This is the right direction," multiple times, in different tones, across different contexts. Group members may repeat the phrase to each other, not because they have analyzed the direction, but because shared language feels stable. The group accepts the idea as collective truth. The echo replaces thinking with familiarity. To see the echo clearly, separate your impression from your repetition. Look for ideas that return without being examined. Look for phrases that appear in your thoughts that you did not form yourself. Look for beliefs that feel obvious but cannot be traced back to reasoning. The echo does not need to be loud to be strong. Often, it is quiet. It follows you. You hear it in your own voice after enough time. Control does not always take the shape of pressure. It does not need sharp edges or force. It can arrive through ease, through relief, through the sense that someone else is smoothing the world on your behalf. When comfort is steady and dependable, you may lean on it. When you lean often enough, leaning becomes normal. When leaning becomes normal, dependence grows quietly. The cage forms not from walls, but from the fear of losing the comfort you have come to rely on. This is the soft cage. Imagine you meet someone who makes things easier for you. They handle the planning. They give reassurance when you are anxious. They speak for you when you hesitate. They anticipate your needs. You feel safe with them. You feel understood. The dynamic begins as support. There is no push, no pressure, only ease. Over time, the ease becomes expected. When faced with a situation alone, you feel a little lost. You reach for their voice in your mind. You hesitate. You think, what would they say? The comfort that once felt like care has become part of how you move. You begin to avoid situations where they are not present. You choose the path that keeps them close. Without discussion, you have built the boundaries of your own world to match theirs. The cage is soft because it feels better to stay inside. Another example, a partner says, "Don't worry, I'll handle it," again and again. At first, this feels generous. It removes stress. You can relax, but slowly your capacity shrinks because you are not practicing it. You lose confidence in areas where they step in. If you try to take control later, you feel unsure. You rely on them because your skills have become dormant. They did not take your independence. You set it down piece by piece because the relief felt good. This is how comfort can become control without intent, without malice, without plan. Yet the result is the same. In friendships, the soft cage may appear as emotional dependence. You share your fears with one person. They always respond in the same soothing way. You start to avoid sharing yourself with anyone else because others feel less safe. Soon, your emotional stability is tied to one voice. You do not feel whole without their reflection. You stay close to them, not because the connection is balanced, but because stepping back would feel like losing part of your internal scaffolding. Dependence feels like loyalty when you do not question it. In workplaces, a leader may create comfort to secure loyalty. They protect you from criticism. They reassure you when others challenge you. They speak highly of you in public. You feel valued. Yet when you consider leaving, you feel guilt or anxiety. You worry that you will not be supported anywhere else. The comfort becomes a tether. The cage does not block the exit. The cage only makes the outside feel colder. The soft cage rarely says, "Stay." It says, "You won't find this anywhere else." Another scenario. You live with someone who creates routines that make life flow smoothly. They know how you like your space, and your meals, and your quiet. Your days settle into stability. If conflict arises, they use calm tones and reassuring words. Let's not ruin this peace. The peace becomes the currency. You silence discomfort to protect it. You avoid necessary conversations because the cost of disrupting the comfort feels too high. Comfort becomes the barrier to growth. The cage is soft because it is lined with familiarity. The familiar feels safe, even when it limits you. The unknown feels threatening, even when it may hold expansion. The soft cage strengthens when your identity becomes tied to the relationship or environment. If you think, "I am more myself with them," then losing them risks losing yourself. You may start making decisions not based on what you want, but based on what will maintain the comfort dynamic. You stay within the circle that feels easiest. The cage tightens by narrowing your world to what feels safe. A key sign of the soft cage is hesitation. When you think about making a choice alone, something inside you pauses. You may hear a quiet fear. What if I'm wrong? What if I disappoint them? What if I can't handle it? These questions do not come from your inner voice. They come from the part of you that has traded independence for ease. Another sign is guilt. If guilt appears when you imagine creating distance, the cage is in place. Guilt replaces reason. It tells you that changing the dynamic would harm the one who comforts you. The guilt is not about them. It is about losing the identity that formed through the comfort. The soft cage is hardest to see because nothing feels forced. You may even praise the person who holds the cage in place. You may admire their steadiness, their kindness, their reliability, and they may truly be kind. Soft control does not require malintent, but the impact remains. Your sense of self becomes tied to someone else's presence. To recognize the soft cage, ask yourself, do I choose this relationship, or do I avoid losing it? Do I feel capable when I act alone, or do I feel small? Do I express my full self, or just the version that maintains peace? Control through comfort does not break you, it quiets you. You do not notice the silence until you try to speak outside of it. Some people learn by asking, some learn by watching. The kindly collector learns by inviting you to speak. They build trust through patience. They encourage you to open up, not with pressure, but with presence. They create an atmosphere where speaking feels natural. You feel listened to. You feel understood. You feel safe sharing the parts of yourself that you normally protect. The collector does not hurry. They are in no rush to get to the core of you. They know that depth opens slowly. They know that most people will reveal themselves if given warmth and attention. To you, the connection feels intimate. You believe the exchange is mutual. You believe both of you are offering truth. But the collector reveals very little. Their stories come in controlled pieces. Their past is vague. Their feelings are described in soft outlines. When you look back later, you might realize you know almost nothing concrete about them, yet they know a great deal about you. Consider the early conversations. They ask gentle questions, not direct ones. They ask questions like, "What was that like for you?" Or, "What do you usually do when you feel that way?" They allow space after you speak. Silence does the work. People fill silence with honesty. You feel valued because they do not interrupt. You feel respected because they do not judge. The comfort builds. You speak more. This is how collection begins. The kindly collector does not appear threatening. They do not challenge or contradict you early on. They mirror your tone. They validate your emotions. They encourage vulnerability by being patient. You may feel grateful. You may feel seen. You may feel that you have found someone who finally understands the shape of your inner world. What you do not see is the pattern. They ask questions that reveal your emotional fault lines. Who do you fear losing? What wounds do you carry? Where do you feel shame? What memories make you soften? What beliefs hold you together? They never ask these questions directly. They let you arrive at them. They simply place the conditions where the truth spills out. Another sign, your disclosures feel voluntary. You do not feel pulled. You feel guided by your own comfort. The collector does not demand trust. They let you give it. But a person who receives your secrets without offering their own is not sharing. They are holding. Picture a moment months later. You express uncertainty about something important. Your voice wavers. You feel fragile. The collector responds not with comfort, but with a sentence that strikes exactly where it hurts. A sentence that reminds you of something you told them when you were vulnerable. A sentence that carries weight because it came from your own history. Words cut because they came from a place you once believed was held with care. This is when the purpose of the collection becomes clear. The kindly collector does not use information immediately. They wait until it provides leverage. The leverage may not look dramatic. It can look like subtle influence, steering, guiding, suggesting, nudging you away from your strength and toward your need. For example, if the collector learns that you fear disappointing others, they may say during conflict, "I didn't think you were the kind of person who would let someone down." This is not an argument. This is a weapon shaped from your own fear. You move to relieve the discomfort. They have already won. If they learn you crave closeness, they may grow distant at moments when they want control. They do not need to criticize you. They only need to remove warmth. The absence activates your fear. You try to fix the distance. The collector does nothing. You come to them. This is how secrets become tools. Another example. You once shared that a parent's anger left you careful with conflict. Later, during disagreement, the collector speaks in calm disappointment instead of direct frustration. They know you will bend faster to avoid emotional withdrawal than confrontation. Again, they do not demand. They let your own history pull you. The collector's influence often looks like care. On the surface, they appear thoughtful. They remember your preferences. They recall dates and details. They show up when you are hurting. You trust them because they have proven themselves attentive. But attention is not the same as devotion. Attention can be strategy. The key sign is imbalance. You reveal, they do not. You explain, they listen. You express vulnerability, they stay composed. You feel known, they remain unreadable. If you try to ask about their past, the stories come in safe fragments. They do not show the parts of themselves that could be used against them. They invite emotional exposure without participating in it. To recognize the collector, observe how your disclosures affect the relationship over time. Are your vulnerabilities treated gently, or are they used to shape your choices? Do you feel more free or more dependent? Do you speak openly because it feels good, or because you feel expected to? Does the other person ever reveal something that could wound them, or only stories that enhance their image? Another sign is how you feel during disagreement. If conflict feels impossible, because they know exactly how to frame words that turn your own fears against you, then your secrets have been weaponized. The collector does not need to threaten. They do not need to raise their voice. Their control is quiet. It relies on the emotional accuracy that you gave them. The softest power is the kind that feels like understanding, until it doesn't. Most influence does not begin with pressure. It begins with a welcome, with warmth, with a moment that makes us feel recognized in a way that feels rare. Many of us move toward those who make us feel understood. We lean in without noticing the direction of the lean. The person on the other side sees that lean for what it is: permission, a doorway, an opening that does not require a key. This is how we become participants in our own manipulation, not through force, through desire. We want the connection to be real. We want the safety to be steady. We want the story we see forming to be the one that lasts. So we smile first. The first smile is the signal that we are open to being seen. It is the sign that we are willing to engage. The manipulator does not create that willingness. They respond to it. They encourage the behavior that benefits them. The smile is not a mistake. It is human. It comes from hope. Imagine you meet someone who listens more closely than most. They look at you in a way that makes you feel like your words matter. They do not interrupt. They nod. They ask a question that shows they understood the detail behind the detail. You feel relief. You relax a little in your chair. You share more. You think, this person gets me. The moment you say, gets me, The doorway opens wider. The manipulator does not need to be aggressive. They only need to reward the parts of you that seek approval or connection. They notice where your voice changes. They notice what memories bring heat to your eyes. They learn what you fear losing and what you hope to protect. They build familiarity around those points. But the key to the manipulation is not what they say. It is what you do. You begin to anticipate them. You adjust in small ways to maintain the warmth. You try to match the tone they create. You soften edges. You avoid saying something that could shift the atmosphere. The changes feel voluntary. They feel thoughtful. They feel kind. Every time you adjust yourself for the sake of the connection, a thread forms. The threads do not look like ropes. They look like care. Over time, these threads shape your behavior, not in one large movement, but in many small ones. A tone you avoid, a boundary you let bend, a preference you silence. You believe you are acting from love or loyalty. Your respect. The manipulator encourages the belief. They say things like, "I appreciate how understanding you are," or "You're not like other people. You really care." These statements assign an identity. You begin to perform that identity to maintain belonging. The manipulation deepens not because the manipulator pushes harder, but because you begin to self-correct. You edit your thoughts before you speak. You remove the parts of you that might create friction. You shape yourself to stay close to their approval. This is the moment where participation becomes internal. The strings do not pull you. You pull yourself. Consider a situation where you disagree with them. The disagreement sits in your chest. You feel it. You rehearse the words. But when the moment comes, you swallow the truth because you do not want to risk a shift in their tone or their warmth. You choose silence. Silence is the sound of the string tightening. Or imagine a time when they withdraw slightly. They grow quiet. They seem disappointed. They do not say anything directly, but the space between you feels colder. You move to fix it. You apologize without knowing for what. You offer comfort without being asked. You reshape yourself to restore harmony. You believe you are restoring peace. You are maintaining control, just not yours. A manipulator does not need to make demands. They only need to let your fear of losing the connection do the work. The fear might not be dramatic. It might be subtle. The fear could be not wanting to be misunderstood, not wanting to seem harsh, not wanting to be alone, not wanting to break something that once felt rare. Whatever the fear is, the manipulator learns to activate it without words. For example, if you fear abandonment, they may go quiet when you assert yourself. If you fear conflict, they may sigh instead of argue. If you fear being seen as selfish, they may frame their needs as fragile. You respond, you smooth, you give, you bend. The manipulation works because it is tied to something meaningful inside you. The puppet does not dance because the puppeteer pulls hard. The puppet moves because the strings are attached to nerves that already existed. To recognize when you have become the willing participant, notice where your voice disappears. Notice where you hesitate. Notice where you speak in apology rather than expression. Notice where you choose comfort over honesty. Notice the part of you that hopes to be chosen, even at the cost of choosing yourself. Many people think manipulation feels like being controlled. More often, it feels like being needed. If the relationship requires you to shrink to keep the peace, the smile that started the bond has become the mask you wear to hold it together. The strings are rarely visible. They feel like loyalty. They feel like care. They feel like love, until the moment you try to move freely and feel tension. People trust certainty. They trust the person who sounds sure, who speaks without hesitation, who moves through decisions as if the outcome is already clear. Certainty feels safe. It reduces doubt. When someone speaks with confidence, the mind often relaxes. The listener feels relieved from the work of evaluating every detail. The confident voice feels like leadership. It feels like guidance. It feels like truth. Yet confidence is not accuracy. Confidence is performance. We mistake the tone for the proof. This is how confidence becomes camouflage. The person who sounds sure appears competent, even when they are not. The message feels true because the speaker does not appear to question it. When someone speaks as if there is no room for doubt, we assume they must know something we do not. Consider a simple situation. You are in a group, trying to decide how to solve a problem. Two people offer ideas. One person speaks carefully. They think while they speak. They consider other possibilities. They phrase their thoughts in a way that leaves room for change. The other speaks with direct statements. This is the way to do it. This will work. We don't need to overthink it. The group is more likely to follow the second person, even when both ideas are equal in quality. The confident tone shifts the perception of competence. Certainty persuades because it feels stable. Now imagine a relationship. One person expresses feelings slowly. They say, "I'm not sure how I feel yet. I need time to understand this." The other speaks with emotional certainty. "I know what this is. This is rare. We are meant to be close." The confident one shapes the emotional direction. The first person may doubt their own sense of pace. They may move faster than they normally would, not because they feel ready, but because the other person's certainty feels like clarity. In this way, confidence can speed up intimacy, commitment, trust, or dependence. Again, the tone guides, not the content. This pattern appears in leadership, dating, work, friendship, and family. People follow the steady voice because questioning it feels uncomfortable. Doubt demands effort. Certainty offers rest. Here is where the camouflage takes hold. Many people assume that if someone were wrong, they would sound hesitant. But hesitation comes from awareness, not ignorance. People who think deeply often pause. People who consider complexity often speak with nuance. People who have experience know that certainty is rare. The person who sounds most sure is often the one who has not considered alternate paths. Confidence can hide lack of understanding. For example, someone may present a plan with strong statements and no evidence. They do not acknowledge risk or error. They tell you the outcome is secure. If you ask questions, they say, "You worry too much," or "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." The dismissal of doubt becomes the proof. The absence of explanation becomes authority. This is how confidence replaces analysis. Another scenario. A friend gives advice. They do not ask questions about your situation. They do not gather context. They tell you exactly what to do. Their tone is firm. Their posture does not shift. Their voice stays steady. You may follow their advice because the clarity feels soothing. Later, you may realize the advice did not fit your life at all. The persuasion came from tone, not thought. Confidence can persuade without offering substance. In workplaces, confidence often shapes who is seen as a leader. Someone who speaks first in meetings, who holds eye contact, who does not qualify their statements, is viewed as decisive. Someone who takes time to think, who weighs options, who sees drawbacks as well as benefits, is viewed as uncertain. Decision-making gets mistaken for competence. Confidence gets mistaken for credibility. This is how the camouflage becomes structure. To recognize confidence used as persuasion, watch for what is missing. Confidence without explanation, certainty without evidence, direction without listening. The person who uses confidence as camouflage does not adjust based on new information. They do not ask clarifying questions. They do not consider your perspective. They rely on tone to carry the message. The strongest sign is how they respond to doubt. If you question them and they welcome the question, explore it and engage with your reasoning. The confidence comes from understanding. If you question them and they dismiss, minimize, redirect, or imply that doubt itself is the problem, the confidence is a tool. Another pattern to notice is pacing. Confidence pushes pace. It moves decisions forward quickly. When someone speaks with certainty, it can feel easier to follow than to slow down. You may find yourself nodding before you think, saying yes before you evaluate, agreeing because the alternative is pausing. Pausing restores autonomy. Confidence as camouflage often works because many people are uncomfortable with uncertainty. When someone offers certainty, even false certainty, it fills a gap. You may accept their view because it reduces your internal friction. The agreement feels smooth. Smooth is not the same as right. Think about situations where you agreed to something before you had processed it. A project, a plan, a relationship, a belief. The moment of agreement may have felt easy. You may not recall clear reasoning behind the choice. You may remember the tone more than the content. Confidence leaves impressions, not explanations. To see clearly, ask yourself simple questions. Did the argument contain evidence or only tone? Did I agree because I believed or because I wanted relief from uncertainty? Did I feel guided or did I feel carried? Did the person show awareness of complexity or did they push simplicity? Confidence is not wrong. Confidence can be real, but real confidence includes room for doubt. Real confidence listens. Real confidence can say, I might be wrong. Real confidence remains steady, even when questioned. Confidence used as camouflage resists all questioning because questioning would expose the hollow space inside it. When certainty persuades before thought has time to speak, the tone has taken the place of truth. Fear changes how the mind works. When fear rises, the brain shifts from reflection to reaction. Logic narrows. The body prepares for movement, not analysis. In that state, urgency feels like necessity, threat feels like truth, and scarcity feels like fact. Decisions made in fear are not chosen. They are escaped into. This is why urgency, threat, and scarcity are the most reliable ways to bypass critical thinking. They push the mind out of its steady state and into its survival state. Once survival mode is active, the question is no longer, is this the right choice? It becomes, how do I make the discomfort stop? That is the doorway fear uses. Not force, not persuasion, pressure. Imagine someone you trust tells you, if you don't decide now, the chance will be gone. You feel tension rise. You feel something closing. The possibility of loss becomes louder than the desire to understand. You may agree before you ask the questions that matter. The urgency replaces evaluation. This is the bypass. Urgency does not give time for thought. Threat does not give room for doubt. Scarcity does not give space to weigh alternatives. Each one compresses the moment. Compression makes thinking feel like a luxury. Consider a small example. A salesperson tells you that a product is almost sold out. You did not want the product before. You may not even like it. But the scarcity triggers discomfort. You think, if I don't act now, I might regret it. The imagined regret not the item, drives the decision. Scarcity speaks to fear of missing out. Urgency speaks to fear of falling behind. Threat speaks to fear of loss. These fears are common. They are part of being human. But when someone knows they work, they can shape situations that activate them at the right moment. Think about relationships. When someone feels you are pulling away, they may say, "If you leave, you'll never find someone who understands you like I do." This is not a statement of care. It is a statement of threat. The threat is emotional loss. The fear of being alone replaces whatever doubts were leading you to step back. The relationship continues, not because it is right, but because leaving feels dangerous. Now consider urgency in emotional contexts. Someone says, "We need to fix this right now, before things get worse." The urgency makes it difficult to step back and see whether the problem is real, solved, solvable, or shared. You move to act because waiting feels like abandonment. The urgency shapes the pace of the interaction. When fear sets the pace is always fast. In workplaces, urgency often takes the form of deadlines that seem absolute. A leader may say, "We don't have time to rethink this." The statement shuts down dissent, not because dissent is wrong, but because dissent takes time, and time has been framed as unavailable. You comply, not because you agree, but because there is no time. Scarcity also appears in social groups. Someone might say, "People don't get many chances like this," or, "If you don't belong here, you'll have nowhere to go." The scarcity here is belonging. The implication is that belonging is rare, fragile, easily lost. The group becomes something to protect, even when the group is unhealthy. Threat often appears in subtle ways. Not large declarations, but small signals. A slight withdrawal, a cooler tone, a pause in response. You sense the shift and move to restore balance. The fear of emotional distance makes you adjust yourself before conflict is even spoken. When fear is present, the body reacts faster than the mind. The bypass works because fear collapses complexity. Fear says, "Act now or lose something." When urgency, threat, or scarcity is present, there are physical signs. Your breathing gets shallow, your chest tightens, your thoughts speed up or narrow. Your voice may soften or rush. These are signals that the reasoning part of the mind has stepped back. The emotional and instinctive parts are steering. To recognize the bypass in real time, notice the shift in your body. Your body often notices influence before your mind does. If you feel rushed, slowed, cornered, or pressured, pause. The pause restores choice. But in the moment, the pause is the hardest thing to do, because fear tells you that pausing is dangerous. Think of a person who uses urgency to win arguments. They say, "We don't need to go over this again," or "Let's just fix this now." The language frames reflection as waste. It suggests that calm thought is the problem. The urgency makes you respond to the tone instead of the situation. The other person gains control because they decide when the conversation ends. Fear's doorway is always narrow. It narrows your options to two: comply or lose something. The something may be peace, connection, stability, belonging, or opportunity. The fear of loss becomes stronger than the desire for clarity. Scarcity also shows up in self-talk. You may tell yourself, "If I don't take this job, I'll never get another," or "If I don't stay in this relationship, I'll never find this feeling again." The scarcity does not come from reality. It comes from imagination shaped by fear. We create urgency inside our own minds. We become both the persuader and the persuaded. This is why fear-based influence works even when No one is intentionally applying it. Fear is efficient. Fear is convincing. Fear is familiar. The key sign that fear is operating is the disappearance of alternatives. If you cannot see more than one option, fear is speaking. If you feel you must act immediately, fear is speaking. If losing something feels worse than choosing poorly, fear is speaking. Fear's doorway is not guarded, it is open. We walk through it because urgency feels like importance. Threat feels like truth. Scarcity feels like fate. To see the doorway, you do not need to resist fear. You only need to recognize when fear is choosing for you. Some pressure is obvious. It shows itself in raised voices, commands, demands, or threat. That kind of pressure is easy to push against. It activates resistance. The mind recognizes the force and prepares to defend itself. But there is another kind of pressure, one that does not look like pressure at all. It comes in tones of care, guidance, support, or reassurance. It feels like someone helping you move forward. It feels like encouragement. This is the hand on the back. A hand on the back does not shove. It guides. It suggests motion. It makes a path feel like the natural one. You move because movement feels expected, not forced. The choice seems mutual. You do not feel controlled because the control arrives as invitation. The language is soft. The tone is warm. The influence is wrapped in kindness. Think of a moment when someone said, "I believe in you. You can do this," but the task felt wrong for you. You may have said yes because refusing would have felt like refusing support. The encouragement did not make space for your uncertainty. It moved past your boundary without noticing it. The praise became pressure. Positive pressure is still pressure. The hand on the back works because it uses alignment rather than argument. The person offering the nudge makes it seem like both of you already agree. They frame the action as a continuation of something you already are or want to be. They say things like, "This is who you are," or "This is the direction you were going anyway." When identity is used as guidance, disagreement begins to feel like betraying yourself. You step forward because stepping back now feels confusing. Imagine a partner who says, "I know you. You always do the right thing." They speak with affection. You feel understood. But the compliment also draws a boundary around your behavior. If you choose something different, you risk being seen as someone who is changed in the wrong way. So you stay in the role they defined for you. The role becomes the pressure. The pressure feels like love. In family dynamics, the hand on the back can look like tradition. This is what we do. This is what our family values. We're supporting you. The expectation is framed as belonging. The path is framed as shared legacy. Stepping in another direction feels isolating, even if the other direction is healthier. The family does not ask. They affirm. The affirmation closes other paths. The pressure hides inside familiarity. This pattern also appears in work environments. A manager may say, "You're the only one I can count on for this." The statement looks like trust. It sounds like respect. But it assigns responsibility without asking whether you want it. If you say no, you risk losing the image of yourself as dependable. So you say yes. You stay late. You carry the weight. You do not call it pressure. You call it dedication. The hand on the back does not break boundaries. It dissolves them. Another example. A friend encourages you to speak more openly, try something new, or be more yourself. At first, it feels supportive. But if the encouragement is constant, if it does not adjust when you show discomfort, then the encouragement is no longer about your growth. It is about maintaining the version of you that makes sense to them. Your self-expression becomes shaped to meet their image. The encouragement becomes instruction. The gentle pressure is most effective when the person offering it is someone you trust. When safety, affection, or admiration is involved, the desire to please is quiet but strong. You move toward the person because connection matters. The motion feels like your choice, even when it is guided. The key feature of the hand on the back is that the push is deniable. If you express discomfort, the other person can say, "I was just trying to help," and they may believe that. They may think they are supporting you. They may not recognize that they are guiding you toward what benefits them or reinforces their view of you. Influence does not require intention. Pressure does not require malice. Control does not require force. To recognize the hand on the back, notice your internal pace. When someone encourages you, do you feel your breath open or tighten? Do you feel grounded or slightly hurried? Encouragement that supports you feels spacious. Encouragement that nudges you feels directional. The direction is the clue. Another sign is the absence of questions. Someone applying gentle pressure rarely asks, "What do you want?" or "How do you feel?" Instead, they speak in statements that assume you already agree. They remove your chance to articulate your own perspective. The decision appears made. If you try to pause, the response may be soft disappointment. A small sigh, a quiet, "I just thought you were ready," or "I believed in you." The disappointment is not loud, but it activates something. You move toward agreement to relieve the tension. The pressure works because you do not want to lose closeness. The hand on the back feels like guidance when you are walking forward. You only feel it as pressure when you try to step aside. So pay attention to the moments when you hesitate. Notice the space between the suggestion and your response. If that space is small, ask why. Is it because the decision fits your desire, or because the desire to maintain harmony is stronger than your own voice? When someone praises you in the exact moments you begin to drift from your boundary, pay attention. When someone affirms you most intensely when you are doing what benefits them, pay attention. When someone encourages you only in the direction that keeps the relationship steady, pay attention. A gentle push is still a push, even when it feels like support. Most people are not fear hunger, pain, or confusion the way they fear being alone. Humans are social animals. We learn early that being part of a group means safety. To be excluded means risk. This instinct sits deeper than logic. It is older than language. When we feel the threat of isolation, our minds react before we understand what is happening. We move toward anything that feels like acceptance. We soften ourselves to match the tone of the group. We adjust our beliefs to align with those around us. This makes belonging one of the strongest influence tools, even when no one intends to use it. The desire to belong shapes how we speak, how we act, and what we allow ourselves to say no to. The fear of being alone shapes what we tolerate. Influence rooted in belonging does not begin with pressure. It begins with comfort. It begins with being welcomed. Someone says, "I get you," or "You're one of us," or "We understand each other." Those words carry more force than debate. Being understood is a relief. The relief makes trust feel natural. Trust makes agreement feel easy. This is the opening. Once belonging is established, the group or the person becomes an emotional anchor. You look to them to decide what is normal, what is acceptable, what is right. You may not realize you are doing this. The shift is small, You start measuring yourself through the reactions of others. You adjust your tone, you edit your jokes, you mirror the rhythm of the group. The adjustments feel harmless, they feel social. But each adjustment links your sense of identity to the approval of the group. The language of belonging is subtle. It is rarely direct. It does not need to say, change to fit in. Instead, it implies that you already fit in. It suggests that you are already accepted, so long as you don't break the pattern. For example, imagine a group of friends who speak in a way that values blunt humor. You join them. You want to be liked. You start adjusting how you speak. When you hesitate, someone says, "Come on, you know how we are." That sentence sounds casual, but it means, we expect you to match us. If you don't, your difference may push you outside the circle. What you adapt to is not the humor, it is the expectation. Now consider a romantic relationship. In the early stage, both people share stories, fears, hopes, and memories. Each shared detail creates emotional closeness. When you feel seen, your nervous system relaxes. When someone says, "I've never connected with anyone like this," you feel chosen. Being chosen feels secure. That security is powerful. You may begin to shape yourself around the relationship without realizing it. You may adopt their interests. You may let go of some of your own. You may avoid expressing things that could disrupt the bond. The language of belonging here is soft, warm, and meaningful. But it can still limit you if your sense of self begins to depend on approval from the other person. Belonging becomes influence when the cost of disagreement feels like losing the connection. In workplace settings, the language of belonging shows up in statements like, "We're a team," or "We're like a family here." The words sound supportive, but if disagreement, boundaries, or rest threaten your place in the group, the belonging becomes conditional. You may stay silent in meetings. You may take on more work than you can manage. You may avoid asking questions that could benefit you, because the fear of being seen as not a team player is stronger than your need for fairness. The fear of exclusion silences us before any direct pressure is applied. To see this clearly, notice how often people say yes to things they do not want to do. The yes is not based on desire. The yes is based on protecting belonging. The language of belonging also appears in families. A parent may say, "We've always done things this way." A sibling may say, "Don't be different." A relative may say, "Don't forget where you came from." These phrases link identity to compliance. You begin to believe that who you are is tied to staying the same. If you grow, you risk losing the place you held. So you hold still, even when something inside you moves. Belonging becomes a cage when it requires self-neglect. The deepest influence comes from the spaces where we feel most understood. When someone knows your insecurities, your hopes, and your wounds, they know what makes you move. Sometimes they use this knowledge gently. Sometimes they guard you well. But sometimes they use belonging to shape your choices. For example, someone may say, "I'm the only one who really understands you." This sentence binds your identity to the relationship. It makes leaving feel like losing a part of yourself. You may stay, even when the relationship begins to harm you. Not because of love, not because of logic, because the alternative is the terror of being unpaired. The language of belonging does not sound like control. It sounds like safety. To recognize when belonging is influencing your choices, pay attention to moments when you silence yourself. Pay attention to the moment you hesitate before saying something true. Pay attention to the moment you agree when your body tightens. These are signs that the cost of being fully yourself feels too high. Another sign is the fear of being misunderstood. When belonging is fragile, disagreement feels like exile. You avoid difficult truths. You choose harmony over honesty. You choose sameness over authenticity. The group or person becomes the reference point for who you are allowed to be. The terror of being alone is not dramatic. It is quiet. It shows up as tension behind your ribs, as the urge to smooth over, as the instinct to make yourself small, as the feeling that you must earn your place. If belonging requires you to shrink, it is not belonging. It is dependency. But dependency feels like love when fear is steering. If belonging requires constant agreement, it is not connection. It is conformity. But conformity feels safe when loneliness feels unbearable. Belonging is a basic human need. It should support identity, not replace it. But when belonging becomes the anchor of identity, influence slips in without effort. The group does not have to ask you to comply. You comply because losing the group feels like losing yourself. The language of belonging is gentle, familiar, and comforting. That is why it is powerful. People understand themselves through stories. We explain who we are by telling ourselves what has happened to us, what we value, what we fear, and what we expect to become. These stories feel personal, but many of them are borrowed. A story does not need to be spoken to take hold. It can form through suggestion, expectation, or the subtle echo of someone else's view of you. When a narrative takes root, it does not argue with you. It shapes you. It changes how you interpret your own thoughts. You do not notice the change because it feels like understanding. It feels like clarity. It feels like self-knowledge. But sometimes the story is not yours. Sometimes the story enters quietly and then grows. It does not force itself. It makes sense. It seems like it fits. You adopt it because it offers identity, even if the identity is smaller than the one you had before. Imagine a person who hears, from a young age, that they are the responsible one. They begin to believe that their role is to care for others, to be reliable, to stay composed. The story becomes part of how they move through the world. They feel uneasy when they need help. They avoid mistakes because mistakes threaten the role. They may feel tired, depleted, or unseen, yet they continue to perform. They did not choose this identity. The story chose them. Stories are powerful because they explain why you act the way you act, why you feel the way you feel, why you belong or why you don't. A story that swallows you does not feel external. It feels like truth. Narratives are most influential during moments of uncertainty. When someone is unsure of who they are, or what they want, or where they are going, they become more open to a story that gives direction. A story can offer comfort or purpose. It can also limit. The limit is not visible at first. The limit comes later, when the story has already settled in. Consider a relationship where one person says, "You're the strong one here. You hold everything together." The statement appears complimentary. It frames the person as capable. But once the identity is accepted, it becomes difficult for them to express weakness. If they struggle, the story tells them they are failing at who they are supposed to be. So they hide the parts of themselves that do not match the narrative. The story shapes behavior more strongly than preference. This is how identity can shift without permission. Sometimes a story enters through admiration. A person hears, "You're so thoughtful," or "You're always calm," or "You're dependable." They enjoy being seen this way. The approval feels good. But over time, They begin to suppress the parts of themselves that are messy, confused, impulsive, or inconsistent. They perform the version of themselves that others want to see. They lose access to the other parts. The performance becomes the person. Stories can also take root through criticism. You're too sensitive. You never finish anything. You're difficult. You're broken. Repeated enough, especially during moments of vulnerability, the story becomes internal. The person stops testing whether it is true. They simply assume it is. They navigate the world as someone who is already defined. A story that swallows you does not require someone repeating it. You repeat it to yourself. Narratives shape memory. We remember events that support the identity we believe in. We forget or reframe events that contradict it. For instance, someone who believes they always ruin things will recall mistakes vividly, while dismissing successes as luck. The story selects what counts. The identity becomes self-perpetuating. Group identity can swallow a person in the same way. A political group, a religion, a social circle, a workplace culture, even an online community can offer a narrative of who you are and who you should be. If the group provides belonging, the story feels safe. If the group offers purpose, the story feels meaningful. But if the story discourages questioning, the identity becomes rigid. You begin to think the same thoughts in the same order as everyone else. Dissent feels like betrayal, not reasoning. The shift is gradual. You stop asking, "Is this me?" You start asking, "Am I fitting the story?" The story becomes the lens. You see yourself through it. To understand how a story rewrites identity, imagine someone who begins to believe they are a helper. This identity feels positive. Helping is good. But if they internalize the story too strongly, they may stop expressing needs, because helpers are not supposed to need help. They may choose relationships where they are relied on, rather than valued. They may become exhausted and resentful. But the story says, if you stop helping, you stop being worthy. The person is trapped in an identity that once felt like belonging. Another example, someone begins to believe they are the difficult one. This story may come from family patterns, where one person was labeled the problem. Once the story is accepted, the person may stop asserting needs to avoid trouble. They may tolerate treatment that is unfair. They may abandon themselves to maintain peace. The story becomes the justification for silence. A narrative is strongest when it feels natural. The person no longer sees it as influence. They see it as who they are. To notice when a story has swallowed you, look for the places where you say, "I can't," without evidence. Look for the places where you act out of obligation to a role. Look for the places where you silence yourself before anyone else speaks. Look for discomfort that appears when you imagine acting differently. The story will resist change, not because it is true, but because it is familiar. People fear losing a story, even when the story hurts them. Without the story, they must face uncertainty again. Uncertainty is often more frightening than pain. A story that swallows you does not feel like influence. It feels like identity, which is why it works. Change does not need to be sudden to be powerful. The most lasting changes are often the ones that happen slowly, over time, through small adjustments that barely register in the moment. You may look back one day and wonder how you arrived where you are. The shift was not dramatic. It was quiet. It was gradual. It happened in the spaces where you stopped noticing yourself. People often imagine influence as something loud, direct, or forceful. But influence that lasts usually does not act that way. It moves in small steps. It waits. It adapts. It learns your patterns and works around them. You do not resist because nothing ever feels like a large enough change to resist. Each step feels understandable, reasonable, justified. The path does not announce itself. It unfolds. Imagine you have a certain way of speaking. You joke freely. You express yourself openly. Then one day, someone rolls their eyes when you speak. Nothing major, a small gesture. You feel a slight sting. The next time, you speak with a little less volume. You do not decide to change. You adjust. The adjustment is tiny. You do not call it change. You call it being considerate. Then another moment comes. Someone interrupts you and does not notice. You stop mid-sentence. You do not return to your thought. You begin to believe the interruption means your words do not matter as much. You start speaking less often in group settings. You say less, even when you have thoughts to share. The shift is quiet. No one comments. You might not even notice it yourself. This is how reshaping works. Small shifts that accumulate. In relationships, the quiet reshaping happens when you start adjusting your behavior to avoid friction. You may stop expressing certain opinions. You may avoid bringing up certain topics. You may shrink a little in tone, gesture, or presence. You do not think you are changing yourself. You think you are keeping peace. The desire for connection can make self-erasure feel like care. At first, each adjustment feels helpful, but over time, the adjustments become identity. You begin to forget what your unfiltered self sounded like. You forget the freedom that once came naturally. The change is not visible in any single moment. It is visible when you compare now to a version of yourself you cannot quite reach anymore. The quiet reshaping also appears in environments. A workplace may value constant availability. You begin answering messages faster. You begin staying later, not because anyone forced you, but because it became easier than dealing with the feeling of falling behind. You say you are just being responsible. You do not notice how your free time collapses into obligation. You do not notice how work becomes the measure of your worth. The shift did not arrive in one decision. It came through hundreds of tiny yeses. This form of influence rarely involves direct instruction. There is no spoken command. The control comes from cues, tone, expression, silence, praise withheld or given, approval shown or withdrawn. These cues guide you into changing yourself. For example, someone you care about may become distant when you assert a boundary. They may not argue or criticize. They may just grow quiet. The quiet feels heavy. You do not want the quiet. The next time, you soften your boundary. The person's mood brightens. You feel relief. Your body learns something. Boundaries lead to distance. Distance feels painful. So boundaries become dangerous. You did not decide that. You absorbed it. The reshaping is not logical. It is emotional. It happens at the level of reaction, not reasoning. Another example. You have a hobby you enjoy. It brings you energy. Then someone says, "Do you really need to spend time on that?" Or, "It seems like a waste." Or they simply show no interest when you talk about it. You stop sharing your excitement. Then, slowly, you stop participating. The hobby slips away. You may tell yourself you outgrew it, but what really happened is that your joy no longer felt welcome. Joy needs space to survive. When space collapses, joy fades. The quiet reshaping also occurs inside friendships. A friend may tease you often. They may say it is just humor. Over time, you begin to brace yourself when speaking. Your shoulders lift slightly. You choose words that feel safe. You prepare for a reaction before you speak. You change your language, tone, even posture. But because the shift happens slowly, you think you are just adapting. You do not notice you are shrinking. Every adaptation that reduces you is reshaping. The most telling sign of quiet reshaping is when you begin to forget whether a preference was originally yours. You may find yourself saying you don't mind something you once disliked, or saying you prefer something that once felt unfamiliar. Your preferences have been trained to match the environment or relationship, not through force, through repetition, through subtle reward and subtle discomfort. Identity is not erased in a moment. It is worn down. A single drop does not cut stone, repetition does. To see reshaping clearly, notice these moments. When you hesitate before saying something you once would have said easily. When you apologize for things that do not require apology. When you feel tired in a way you cannot explain. When you feel like you are performing yourself rather than being yourself. When you cannot remember the last time you said no without guilt. These are signs that you have been adjusting in small increments over time. The quiet reshaping does not feel harmful while it is happening. It feels convenient. It feels cooperative. It feels smooth. Resistance feels sharp. Adaptation feels warm. So you lean toward the ease. That ease becomes the pathway through which change happens. No one needs to instruct you to become different. You do it yourself for the sake of connection, peace, or belonging. To recognize the reshaping, compare your present self with your remembered self. Notice the places where you have softened too far. Notice the places where your voice has grown thin. Notice the places where you no longer express need. The reshaping is not failure. It is what humans do to stay close. But closeness built on self-loss is not closeness. It is surrender. Choice is one of the deepest parts of being human. To choose is to feel in control of your direction, your identity, and your future. When people feel they have no choice, they push back, they resist, they defend themselves. But when a situation presents itself as choice, even when the options have already been shaped or narrowed, people are less likely to notice they are being guided. They feel agency, even when agency is limited. This is the illusion of choice, where the form of choice remains, but the substance is gone. You see it when every path leads toward the same outcome. You see it when saying no costs more than saying yes. You see it when one option is made to feel natural, and the others feel like mistakes. The illusion works because it does not remove your ability to decide. It removes the feeling that decision matters. Imagine someone asks, "Do you want to talk now or later?" The question looks open. It appears to offer a real decision, but both options lead to the same thing: talking. The only variable is timing. The outcome is already selected. This structure appears in more complicated ways in relationships, workplaces, families, and groups. The person being influenced rarely sees the structure clearly, because each step feels grounded in their own reasoning. The influence sits in the framing, not the request. Consider a partner who wants more commitment. They may not say, "You must commit." Instead, they say, "Should we move forward or should we question what we are doing?" The wording suggests two options, but one option frames you as loyal and steady, and the other frames you as uncertain and possibly careless. Most people choose the option that protects their sense of being good. The choice is shaped long before it appears. Or think of a workplace decision. A manager says, "We can keep the project as is and fall behind, or we can all push a little harder and deliver something excellent." On the surface, this is a choice, but the first option is framed as irresponsible. The second is framed as admirable. If you choose the second, you feel like you made the right call. If you choose the first, you feel like you failed the group. No one needs to say it. The framing does the work. When influence is embedded in the structure of the choices themselves, resistance feels irrational. You do not push back because pushing back feels like admitting you are the problem. Sometimes the illusion of choice shows up in emotional terms. Someone may say, "If you really care, you'll stay and talk about this." Care becomes tied to a specific action. If you refuse, you appear uncaring. So you stay, not because you want to, but because the alternative feels like being someone you don't want to be. This is how identity becomes leveraged. If the cost of the wrong choice is being seen as disloyal, selfish, cold, weak, dramatic, ungrateful, or unreasonable, then the choice is no longer free. You are choosing between two versions of yourself, one acceptable, one unacceptable. The outcome is already set. You will choose the one that preserves belonging. This is not manipulation only when done with intent. This is also culture. This is habit. This is the quiet way people influence each other without noticing. The illusion of choice is especially strong when it feels like you reach the conclusion on your own. If the framing is subtle, you believe your reasoning led you there. You may even defend the choice as yours. The more internal the reasoning feels, the stronger the illusion. Think of a child who is asked, "Do you want to clean up your toys before dinner or after?" The child focuses on the timing. The child feels empowered. But the real decision, whether to clean, was already made by someone else. The child learns that choice means selecting within boundaries someone else created. Many adults continue to think this way. The illusion of choice often hides inside emotional stakes. If someone says, "Do whatever you want," but the tone suggests disappointment or distance, the message is not freedom. The message is, choose the option that protects the relationship. The person does not need to explain what will happen if you choose differently. You already know. The cost is emotional disconnection. When emotional closeness is tied to the right choice, the choice is no longer free. People conform not because they lack strength, but because they value connection. Now imagine this happening, not once, but gradually over time. You may stop noticing that your decisions are being guided. You may say things like, "I just don't want to cause trouble," or "It's easier this way," or "It makes them happy." These statements hide the real shift. You are no longer asking what you want. You are asking which option protects the relationship, the peace, the image, the identity. The absence of self is quiet, often invisible, often reasonable sounding. To recognize the illusion of choice, pay attention to your internal reactions. When you face a decision, notice, do all options feel equally safe? Or does one option feel like it will cost you belonging? Do you choose based on desire or based on avoiding guilt? Do you feel free to say no, or does no feel dangerous? If no feels dangerous, you are not choosing, you are complying. Sometimes the illusion of choice also appears inside the self. You may say, "I can either ignore my own discomfort and keep the peace, or I can make things worse by speaking up." The mind frames honesty as disruption. The choice becomes obedience to emotional safety. The self reshapes itself to maintain stability. The illusion works because it does not require force. It uses fear, not always loud fear, but the quiet fear of losing connection. When every path leads to the same end, the choice is not real, but the feeling of choosing is. And that feeling is what holds the structure together. Charm is often misunderstood. Many people think charm is about being kind, friendly, or socially skilled. But charm, in its strongest form, is about directing perception. It is the ability to make others feel a certain way about you before they have enough information to decide for themselves. Charm moves faster than thought. It works by shaping emotional impressions before logic has a chance to speak. This is why charm can be a mask. Not because kindness is false, but because charm can be used to hide. A charming person knows how to present themselves. They choose tone, expression, timing, and warmth in ways that feel natural. The ease of their presence makes it difficult to imagine their intent could be anything but good. People trust charm because charm feels safe. It creates familiarity without history. It creates closeness without depth. The mask works because it does not look like a mask. To understand the mask, notice how charm often begins. Someone makes you feel comfortable quickly. They are attentive. They notice small things. They reflect your emotions back to you. They speak in a rhythm that matches your own. You feel understood, maybe even seen. You believe the connection is genuine because it feels immediate. But genuine connection grows over time. Instant connection is often crafted. A charming person will gesture openness early. They may share something personal to signal vulnerability. The disclosure is strategic. It encourages you to open in return. You respond because reciprocity feels natural. You begin to trust not because trust has been earned, but because the other person has framed themselves as trustworthy. The mask works by giving you a role. Your role is to feel warm toward them. Charm that masks intent often has one key feature: consistency without variation. The person stays smooth regardless of circumstance. Their tone does not shift much. They do not show irritation, uncertainty, or hesitation in ways that would reveal authentic emotional response. Their stability feels impressive. But emotional consistency without fluctuation can be a sign of performance. Real people react. Real people hesitate. Real people show strain. A mask does not. Imagine someone who always says the right thing. They respond to your emotions precisely at the moment you feel them. They offer comfort before you even express discomfort. They agree with your opinions, even ones they have not heard before. They seem to know how to respond in every context. This may feel like resonance. It may actually be mirroring. Mirroring is a common social skill, but when it is used excessively, it functions as camouflage. The person becomes what you want them to be. You see yourself reflected, and you like who you are, so you like them. But the reflection does not tell you who they are. Charm can also appear in the pacing of conversation. The charming person guides the rhythm. They know when to pause. They allow silence to feel intimate instead of awkward. They express emotions in a measured way. They seem generous in attention. You feel valued. Feeling valued is not the same as being valued. The mask of charm often shows itself when something disrupts the script. If you ask a grounding question like, "What did you mean by that?" or you show uncertainty or assert a boundary, watch how the charming person responds. If the charm is genuine, the person adjusts. They stay present. They remain steady. They listen. If the charm is a mask, the reaction may shift. The shift is small, but telling. A charming mask may show itself through a slight flash of irritation before the smile returns. A delay in response that feels calculated rather than thoughtful. A change in eye contact, too direct or suddenly distant. A compliment used to redirect instead of address the question. These micro-reactions are more revealing than speech. A person who uses charm as a mask will try to maintain the atmosphere they created. The atmosphere matters more than the content of the interaction. They want you to feel a certain way because the feeling protects them from scrutiny. Charm can also work by managing pace. When someone moves quickly, emotionally, socially, or conversationally, they prevent deeper thinking. You do not have time to check your internal reactions. You go along because the situation feels smooth. Smoothness is pleasant. The mind likes ease, but ease can hide missing information. To recognize charm as a mask, slow the pace inside yourself. Not the conversation, your perception. Ask yourself, do I know this person's values or only their tone? Do I know what they disagree with or only what they agree with? Do they show self-reflection or only refined presentation? Do I feel understood or do I feel managed? Another revealing sign is how charm behaves around others. Does the person adjust themselves differently depending on who is present? Do they play different roles to different audiences? Do they maintain the same polished tone with someone who does not benefit them? Charm used as a mask is selective. It targets where advantage is possible. A charming person who is genuine will treat the less powerful the same way they treat the more powerful. A mask slips in environments where the person perceives no gain. Watch how they behave toward service workers. Watch how they behave when they are inconvenienced. Watch how they behave when they are not being observed. Charm has difficulty surviving these conditions. Another sign appears when conflict arises. Genuine charm transforms in conflict. It becomes patience, curiosity, or honesty. Masked charm fractures. It may become cold, sharp, dismissive, or manipulative. Sometimes it remains smooth, but the warmth disappears. The emotional tone goes flat. The smile remains, but the eyes no longer match it. That is the moment when the curtain pulls back. Charm is not inherently false. Some people are warm because warmth is their nature. Some people listen closely because they care. Some people create comfort because they value connection. But charm becomes a mask when it substitutes for identity. When the performance of likability replaces the truth of who the person is. The key difference is depth. Charm without depth feels hollow once you slow down enough to notice. If being around someone leaves you feeling slightly off-center, slightly self-conscious, or slightly unsure of your own impressions, the charm may have replaced mutual presence. If you feel more observed than seen, more guided than known, the charm may be directional, not relational. Charm that is real makes room for your full self. Charm that is a mask requires you to stay in the role they respond to. When the smile seems to appear before the emotion, look for the curtain. Sometimes when you walk into a conversation, a decision, or a situation, it may feel like you are contributing to the outcome. You may believe your input shapes what happens next. But there are moments when the real choices have already been made. The structure of the situation is set. The direction is settled. The ending is waiting. What you are being given is not decision-making power, but participation in the appearance of decision-making. This is the puzzle already solved. The pieces may still be laid out in front of you. You may be asked to look, weigh, consider, or discuss, but the image has already been completed. The discussion is not to decide the outcome. It is to produce your agreement with the outcome. This can happen in ways that feel natural. It can look polite, democratic, thoughtful, collaborative. It works because the room is arranged to make the predetermined conclusion feel like the most reasonable one. The shape of the conversation leads to that conclusion even if no one says so directly. The impression of choice covers the absence of choice. To understand this clearly, imagine a workplace meeting about a new policy. The leader begins by describing a problem that needs solving. The problem is presented in a way that points toward only one viable solution. The conversation begins at a point where alternative perspectives already seem impractical or uninformed. You have walked into a problem statement that is not neutral. The framing limits the possible direction. You can offer opinions, but the structure guides you toward the outcome that was chosen before the meeting began. The puzzle was solved before you saw the pieces. Another version of this happens in personal relationships. Someone might say, "I've been thinking about what's best for us," and then present a conclusion that feels inevitable. The phrasing is important. It sounds thoughtful. It sounds shared. But the decision has already been made internally. The conversation is not about deciding. It is about easing you into accepting what is already set. If your role in the decision is to agree, reassure, support, or understand, then the choice was not collaborative. It was finished before you arrived. Sometimes the puzzle is solved not by a person, but by culture. Social norms, family patterns, or group dynamics can create a path that is difficult to question without appearing disruptive. You choose the expected option because choosing otherwise carries invisible costs: disapproval, distance, confusion, withdrawal. The choice does not need to be ordered. The structure of belonging enforces it. This is how subtle influence works. The end is established first, and the steps are arranged backward. The engineering of outcomes often happens through framing. The way a situation is introduced influences how it unfolds. For example, if someone starts a conversation by saying, "We need to be realistic," they have already set a tone that limits possibility. If they say, "Everyone agrees this is the best approach," they have implied consensus before it exists. If they say, "The alternative is chaos," they have framed the other options as foolish or unstable. Once the framing is set, people tend to move within it. To recognize when an outcome has already been engineered, notice when the conversation moves smoothly in one direction and not in others. If offering an alternative feels like interruption rather than contribution, the direction was chosen before you spoke. If asking questions makes the room tense, the puzzle is already complete. If disagreement feels like breaking something delicate, the conclusion has already been protected. Questions reveal the shape of the structure. Were multiple solutions considered before the conversation started? Who benefits from the outcome being presented as inevitable? Is your input being acknowledged or simply absorbed into the narrative? Do you feel free to say no? The last question matters most. If saying no feels costly, the puzzle is not a puzzle. It is a corridor. A corridor has walls. The path is straight. There is only forward. In some relationships, the puzzle is solved by emotional patterns. For instance, one person may often assume the role of the calm, guiding figure. The other may assume the role of the flexible, understanding one. These roles shape decisions without discussion. The relationship's identity demands predictability. If you try to step outside your assigned role, the emotional atmosphere shifts. Discomfort rises. You return to the familiar path. The outcome repeats. The puzzle stays solved. This is not always intentional. It may happen out of habit, but the effect is the same. The outcome is predetermined by roles, not choices. In group situations, engineered outcomes can be hidden inside shared language. Phrases like, "This is just how things are," or "We all know what needs to be done," or "Let's just get on the same page," assume alignment before it exists. If you speak against the direction, you are not arguing against a position. You are arguing against the group identity. The puzzle here is not just solved. It also polices itself. Engineered outcomes sometimes feel reassuring. They remove uncertainty. They give a sense of structure. But when the structure replaces your agency, something important gets lost. You participate in something that does not allow your presence to matter. You become an actor in a play where your lines are encouraged, but your improvisation is not permitted. To notice this in real time, pay attention to your body. Does your chest remain open or does it tighten? Do you feel room to think or do you feel hurried? Do you sense invitation or direction disguised as discussion? The body recognizes constraint before the mind names it. If the conversation feels smooth in a way that leaves no space for your perspective to change the direction, the puzzle has already been solved. You did not enter to shape the ending. You entered to complete the appearance of choice. Trust rarely begins with logic. It begins with memory. Not memory that arrives as clear images or detailed scenes, but memory that lives in the body. The tone of voice that soothed you once, the rhythm of someone's speech that made you feel safe, the posture of someone who listened without interruption, or the familiar tilt of a smile that feels like home without needing to be earned. We respond to familiarity more than we respond to truth. We trust resemblance before we trust reality. This is the warm shadow, not the person in front of us, but the echo of someone who came before them. When someone reminds us of a person we once loved, a parent, a friend, a mentor, a first love, the familiarity feels comforting. The mind treats familiarity as safety because the nervous system associates what it recognizes with survival. That person may not look the same. The resemblance might come from something small, a cadence, a sense of humor, a way of saying your name. The connection feels natural because it skips the evaluation stage. Instead of assessing who they are, you respond to who they feel like. This can create trust quickly, trust that has not been tested, examined, or earned. The feeling comes first, the reasoning follows. Often, the reasoning tries to justify the feeling. Imagine meeting someone new who laughs in the same gentle way a childhood friend did. The friend who made you feel at ease during moments you did not know how to explain. The new person laughs and your shoulders drop. You feel warmth. You feel open. You feel like you already know how to be around them. The response is not about who they are. It is about who they remind you of. Your memory is doing the work. This form of recognition shapes attachment. We do not always love people because of who they are. We often love them because of the emotional patterns they match. Sometimes this works in healthy ways. If the person they resemble was kind, steady, or nurturing, the familiarity can help you relax and connect. But if the resemblance echoes someone who caused pain or confusion, the pull can still feel strong. The nervous system does not distinguish between familiar good and familiar harmful. It only recognizes what it has known. This is why people repeat relationship patterns without realizing it. Not because they choose the same person, but because they choose the same feeling. Consider someone who grew up with a parent who was warm one moment and distant the next. The inconsistency becomes the emotional baseline. Later, they may find themselves drawn to someone who shows affection in waves, intense closeness followed by withdrawal. It feels familiar. Familiarity feels like truth, so the person believes the connection is meaningful, when it may simply be recognizable. The worn shadow is not always positive in content. It is positive in sensation. The sensation says, I've been here before. I know how to move in this space. And knowing how to move feels safe, even when the space is not. The warm shadow can also appear in leadership. A mentor, teacher, or manager who resembles an early figure of guidance can evoke immediate respect. You may take their advice more seriously. You may accept their approval or disapproval more strongly. You may shape your actions to earn their approval, not because the approval has real importance, but because your history has given it weight. Again, the resemblance is rarely visual. It lives in tone, timing, presence, stance, or emotional pattern. The warm shadow also influences attraction. Many people describe falling for someone and feeling like they knew them forever. The familiarity can feel like fate, connection, destiny, or some shared understanding that predates the relationship. But often, the familiarity comes from internal pattern recognition. The nervous system sees a match and signals safety or longing. The meaning we assign to the sensation comes after. The warm shadow can mask red flags. If someone resembles someone who once cared for you, you may ignore signs that something feels off. You may explain away concerns. You may assume good intent. You may offer trust that has not been earned. The trust does not come from the present. It comes from the past being projected forward. This projection can also work the other way. If someone resembles a person who once hurt you, you may distrust them unfairly. You may pull away, when they show sincerity. You may feel guarded without knowing why. The reaction is real, but the cause is not in the present. The body remembers patterns, even when the mind does not name them. To recognize the warm shadow, notice how quickly you assign comfort. If trust arrives before history, ask why. If closeness arrives before understanding, ask what it reminds you of. If you feel like you already know someone, ask who they echo. You can begin to trace the resemblance. You might notice the way they soften their voice during tension. You might notice their silence feels familiar, not neutral. You might notice you anticipate their reactions before they happen. All these are signs that your body is responding to memory, not the present person. The warm shadow also becomes clear when conflict appears. If conflict feels different than it should, either too intense or too mild, the emotional reaction may belong to a past relationship, not the current one. For instance, if you fear upsetting someone more than the situation calls for, it may be because you once learned that upsetting someone carried consequences. The present is being colored by the past. The shadow is shaping your behavior. Another way to recognize the warm shadow is to observe whether you are more concerned with how the other person sees you than with how you feel around them. If the relationship feels like maintaining a role rather than being fully present as yourself, the shadow may be guiding you. You are reliving, not relating. The warm shadow does not mean the person is acting with manipulation or intent. They may be neutral, kind, or unaware. The dynamic happens inside you, but recognizing the shadow allows you to choose instead of react. When you slow down and notice the resemblance, you can begin to ask, do I trust this person because of who they are, or because of who they remind me of? Do I feel safe because the situation is safe, or because the feeling of safety is familiar? Do I like them, or do I like the memory they evoke? The answers are often quiet and subtle, but they are honest. The warm shadow shows how we learn love, not as an idea, but as a pattern. We look for echoes. We move toward familiarity. We trust the remembered shape of closeness. But closeness that comes too quickly is rarely about the present. It is the past returning, wearing a new face. Desire is often spoken about as something personal. We believe we choose what we want. We assume our wants rise from inside us. But desire is shaped. It forms from experience, memory, scarcity, praise, belonging, and fear. The things we long for most usually come from a place where something once mattered deeply, or where something was once missing. Because of that, desire can be used against us without force. The path into someone's behavior is not always pressure. Often, it is access through longing. When you want something strongly, you open a door. You allow certain kinds of influence to move through you with less resistance. The more important the want, the easier the control. The influence does not feel like control, though. It feels like meaning. You do not feel pushed, you feel drawn. This is why desire can act as a double agent. It feels like yours, but it can work for someone else. Consider the desire to feel seen. Many people carry it quietly. When someone enters your life who listens with unusual attention, you may feel understood in a way that feels rare. You lean toward this person. You share more. You make space for them. You want to maintain the feeling. The desire to be seen starts guiding your choices. You do not realize how much you are giving because you believe you are receiving. If the person offering attention has their own agenda, they do not need to apply pressure. They only need to continue giving you the feeling you crave. The feeling becomes the hook. You stay near the source of your desire. You self-regulate to avoid losing it. Your behavior begins to adapt to protect the feeling. The desire controls you from the inside. Another example is the desire to feel chosen. If you have spent years feeling overlooked, unvalued, or replaceable, someone who shows preference toward you may feel extraordinary. Their attention feels like proof that you matter. When this desire is strong, it becomes easy to overlook what is missing. If the relationship begins to feel uneven, or the behavior becomes inconsistent, you may justify it rather than question it. The desire to remain chosen becomes stronger than your desire for clarity or truth. You shape yourself to avoid losing the feeling, not the person, the feeling. This is the pivot point where desire begins to function as silent influence. There are also material desires: recognition, stability, opportunity, approval, success. Each one can be used as leverage. A boss who knows you care about advancement does not need to threaten you. They only need to hint at potential growth. A mentor who knows you fear rejection does not need to enforce boundaries. They only need to withhold comfort at certain moments. A partner who knows you want affection does not need to argue. They only need to show warmth selectively. The desire does the pulling. No one else has to. This is not about weakness. It is about how the human nervous system is built. Desire narrows focus. It reduces alternative awareness. The brain prioritizes the object of desire over other considerations. This is not dramatic. It is subtle. When you crave something, you assign it meaning. That meaning shapes your interpretation of situations. If someone appears to offer what you want, you are more likely to interpret their actions in the most generous light. You do not evaluate them with neutrality. You evaluate them through hope. Hope softens perception. It makes red flags look like misunderstandings. It makes imbalance look temporary. It makes discomfort look meaningful. This is how desire becomes a bridge for influence. Think of a person who longed for approval growing up. They enter adulthood still trying to earn it, not consciously, but through habits. They agree quickly. They adapt quickly. They apologize often. When someone offers them validation, they attach fast. The validation feels like oxygen. The person offering it becomes important, not because of who they are, but because of what they represent. The desire becomes the link. A person who understands this about you does not need to manipulate you in obvious ways. They simply need to position themselves as the source of what you crave. Once the association is formed, the influence becomes automatic. You adjust to keep the feeling alive. To see desire working as a double agent, look at your compromises, not the reasonable ones, the ones that create tension inside your chest, not the small ones, the ones that silence parts of you. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing? If the answer is not the person, but the feeling they provide, your desire is the active force. When desire drives you, you begin shaping yourself without being asked. You anticipate what to say. You avoid what might disturb the connection. You become careful. You make yourself more pleasant, more agreeable, more patient, more predictable. Influence does not always come from someone demanding change. Influence comes from wanting to keep something enough that you change yourself. The same dynamic appears in group belonging. If you desire acceptance, you may echo opinions you do not fully support. You may absorb beliefs to avoid being the outsider. You may mask discomfort to maintain closeness. The desire to belong shapes your identity at the edges. You smooth yourself to fit inside a place where the cost of misalignment feels high. Here, the group does not control you. Belonging controls you. Desire is the agent carrying the message inward. The important thing is not to eliminate desire. Desire is natural. It is part of being human. But desire becomes a force of control when you do not know its shape or its origin. If you do not recognize what you crave, you cannot recognize when someone is mirroring it back to you with intention. You cannot recognize when you are moving because you want to. And when you are moving because you fear losing the feeling attached to the want. To see desire clearly, observe where your body tightens when connection feels threatened. Observe when you rush to repair something before you understand it. Observe when silence feels unbearable because it threatens the bond. Observe when you agree quickly to restore ease. In those moments, desire is acting on your behalf, but not always in your interest. The double agent does not betray you loudly. It moves quietly. It tells you that you are choosing freely, even when you are not.